In just a couple of minutes after 7 o'clock, I'd like to call this Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. Can I have an acceptance of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any walk-ins this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to a report of the Town Administrator. Tricia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few items to go over with you, but most of them involve water, so I guess I'll ask Sean Anderson and Kevin to come up.
How are you, Sean?
Good evening.
Kevin?
Yeah, go ahead. So we had a water crisis management task force meeting this afternoon. We have an update that will go out tomorrow, and we covered, our list is sort of getting longer. Your agenda was revised late this afternoon because we got the letter of agreement for the town of Cohasset, so we want the board to vote and execute that tonight, so that's in place. And we've also been talking, as you know, about short-term and long-term solutions for water, and Kevin and Sean are here to update us on what we covered today.
Okay, thank you. As Tricia said, the drought crisis management team met today. Traces of rain fell on Sunday, allowed a little bit more than a quarter of an inch fell on Monday. Surrounding communities received much more rain than we did in Scituate. Cooler weather is expected this weekend with the possibility of light rain overnight on Friday. No significant rainfalls anticipated for the next 2 weeks, from what we can tell talking to a couple of the weathermen in the long-term forecast. The water supply, the water department has not drawn any water from the reservoir since late August. All water production has been from the town's wells. The reservoir remains unchanged at about minus 82, which is 21.4%. So that's very positive, and that's great. The water department reports that the groundwater levels have dropped slightly in and around the wells, making it more difficult for the wells to pump and operate efficiently. We're still in a good efficiency. Everything's still pumping, but we are noticing some fluctuations. To ease the situation, one of the things we're going to do is reduce a little bit of the pressure in the tanks. Nothing dramatic. What we might do is, typically now, as the tank drops 3 feet, we pump it right up. We're going to let it drop to 6 feet and then pump it up. For the whole system, it might be a minuscule amount of pressure change. Chances are nobody will notice it because in the summer, the tank typically drops 10 to even 12 feet. So we're still staying in that realm, but we're giving a little relief for the pumps in that aspect. It's less water that they have to pump. There's a plan and a procedure in place for getting water tanker trucks from the Forest Service in MEMA in the event of fire emergency. The fire chief's working on that. The Cohasset Water Commission has agreed to provide water to Scituate in the event of our reservoir drops to 10%. And the two water departments have established a connection on Summer Street, which we've tested and have set up. In case of emergencies, we are hard connected, but if we get into the plan where we did need it 10%, we would set up our temporary line that goes and connects to hydrants across there. All the parts in pieces are in place. We have everything, including the meters. We've dry fitted, turned the hydrants, and we did a test on it last week, and everything worked out fine. Everything's connected, and it shouldn't be an issue if we ever got to that. Water usage, through continued effort of the residents and businesses, average water use continues to drop. It dropped to 1,061,000 gallons per day last week. The level of usage is a little below our typical wintertime consumption, so conservation by residents and business remain the single biggest factor that will enable us to get through this extraordinary period of drought. So can't say enough to everybody that's conserving. Helpful water-saving tips sent in by fellow residents are posted on the town's website. If you have any, you can send them to conservewater@situatema.gov. Also, the next edition of the water conservation video with SCTV on Channel 8 and 9 is out on how to reduce water usage in your bathroom. It's a pretty exciting video. We did have a couple violations this past week. And fines were sent out, one on Gilson, one on Gannett, and one on Kent Street. The fire chief did warn that the drought has caused much drier conditions and increased dangers of fires, especially be careful with fire pits or anything like that. A Future resiliency, we're looking at expansion of the reservoir. The town has applied to the Mass Department of Environmental Protection a grant to complete a 60% design and permitting to raise the level of the water at the reservoir by 18 inches. There'll be a warrant article this October in the special town meeting to provide matching funding for the next step in this project. We're also looking at additional wells and looking at the Dolan Well property off Country Way near Hollitt. Outreach and education, North-South River Watershed Association and the school department are developing a program on water conservation and how the students can help. And the transfer station is looking to buy 25 rain barrels to sell to the public on a first-come, first-served basis, and details will be forthcoming on how we're going to set that up. And it's probably going to be like a sticker program you could buy online and then pick them up at the transfer station. But we're still working out all the details on that. So, that's an update on where we are and what's going on, and we can answer any questions that the board may have.
So from the 1st of September till the 20th, total rainfall has been .75. 3/4 of an inch, yeah.
I believe so. Yep.
Yeah.
That's correct.
.075.
Yeah.
Did you get this? Did they get this?
Yes.
Oh, terrific.
Yep, we gave
Okay,
that to
thank
them
you.
also.
Yep.
How much does the water tower hold? How many gallons?
One of the towers is a 1 million gallon tank. The other one's 1,250,000 gallons.
So the one up on Maple off,
I believe Maple is the 1.25 million
Yeah.
gallon tank. Is that correct?
And the other one on, what, Creelman is it?
so about 1 day's worth of use. But that's really the pressure of the system.
Correct.
Great, well, good job. It's,
Conservation's the key,
Yeah, we need
and
the
the
rain.
residents have been doing a great job. We do need the rain. Talking to Tim Kelly, he says we're in a donut hole. We're not getting any rain. Even the surrounding communities this past weekend, some of them got an inch of rain, and we got a third of an inch or a quarter of an inch, so it is tough.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating when you watch it. I think it was a Gardner, Mass, over 4 inches? And we got a quarter of an inch?
But we don't want it all at once either, right? We want just a little at a time, isn't that the right? If we had a...
We'll take what we can get at this time.
But if we get
4 inches of rain, I'll be
But I
doing
mean,
a
if
rain
we get
dance
it
out
all at
there.
once, it's gonna just run off.
Right, but it'll saturate the ground, it'll start to rehab the wells, the water will eventually get down to the wells, it'll stop bringing the groundwater table up. You're right, I mean, we would like a
Ideally.
long, ideally, like for a week of steady rain. You know, the 4 inch, if it did rain 4 inches, we'd get 4 inches over the volume of the reservoir, would raise it up, hopefully.
Right.
And then all the tributaries that enter that reservoir, hopefully the water would get in there if you had that much rain. The problem is when you get half an inch of rain, it just kind of absorbs in the ground. It doesn't even win the stream bed. It just kind of absorbs in there and doesn't get to
Just
the
because it's so
reservoir.
dry.
Yeah.
So Jennifer Keefe, the Board of Health Director, is also on the team. She said all of the perk tests she's witnessed, they're completely dry right now at 5 or 6 feet. So, you know, that's something that, in terms of the groundwater or whatever, we're monitoring.
Wow. All right, anybody else have any questions? Anybody in the audience have any questions at all?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Kevin, are you back later?
Yes.
So we just, we're not, just hold on. So I just want to reiterate that, you know, conservation really is what's helping us get through this. And we're trying to be mindful that we're going to be asking residents to do this for an extended period of time. We're right now at flows that we see in January in terms of our levels. So we want to thank everybody for the great job that they've been doing. We've been getting great conservation tips and good feedback, and we just want people to keep up the good work. So I have 2 more items, and then you can do the letter of agreement. I sent out a follow-up from our retreat late this afternoon on the items that we discussed, and some follow-up action items that the board was concerned about relative to Tilden and Countryway Pass, along with future water and sewer resiliency. And there was one more item. A coordinated approach to development projects in the town, both town-issued and privately issued. And I just wanted to remind the board that tonight, the forum that the town is sponsoring with Coastal Coalition, is taking place on the FEMA flood maps informational session with Leslie Fields of Woods Hole Group, and it is at the Beach Association,
SBA.
SBA.
Scituate Beach Association.
Thank you. And that's all I have, and then if you want to entertain a motion to approve the agreement with the town of Cohasset. Do you have it,
Letter.
I haven't seen it.
Rain?
We have the letter? I don't see it in here. Is it the end of the?
So basically, what this letter of agreement says is pretty much what we've been representing to you all the time, that Cohasset will provide water to us when the reservoir goes to 10%. It will be $7.06 per 1,000 cubic feet of water. That is the exact rate that they charge their residents. And you will see in the proposed letter of agreement, which I recommend the board execute, Cohasset recognizes that it's in these times of difficulty that towns come to the aid of the other, and they pose a threat. The only caveat then is if Cohasset should at some point have a situation where they need water and get in dire straits, they reserve the right to come to us and talk about terminating. We don't anticipate that in the foreseeable future, as Cohasset water supplies are okay right now. I have an extra copy. Sorry about that.
Did Kevin say they had been flushed out, so if we did need to open the valve, Kevin, it wouldn't be brown?
On South Street, it's actually a brand-new line on each
Okay.
side. They replaced it 3 years ago, we just replaced it last year.
So it could
it
go-
shouldn't be an issue with that location. The only issue that we'd have is it's on a high-service system, so we'd have to make some modifications, but we figured it all out.
All right.
We did post on our website today a communication that we got from DEP about drought conditions and conservation tips. We've been posting that information for about 6 weeks, but in case there was anything that folks wanted to know in terms of what the state is doing relative to the statewide drought, we thought it would be helpful to put out and share on Facebook and the website.
What is their water level?
Who?
Cohasset?
They have about a year, I think. Don't they have about a year?
Yeah, we had that data, about a year's supply.
Water for their residents.
Yeah.
Oh,
They've got that big reservoir.
Looks good.
first page?
So this is basically, let me just go back again. It's not mutual, it's just for the benefit of the town of Scituate, being able to draw water from Cohasset. It's not reciprocal.
But the preface in the whereas, I think, John, indicates that, they know that we would do the same thing in exchange in terms of towns reaching out during unforeseen emergency circumstances.
I have no problems with that, it's just only when I get to the charge from Cohasset, there's nothing in there that says what we would charge if it were the reverse, and updates, they'd provide updates to us in the event that I have no problems with
Okay.
working collaboratively or in a
Yep.
partnership. I'm just saying, in the event that it goes the other way, we just want to be able to say, we're going to be charging you probably. I assume they're charging us probably residential rate. Do
They're
we know?
charging us the
That's
same
right,
rate as
they're
And that's
706
exactly what
per
we'd want to say
thousand,
to them.
707.
So that they understand
Yep.
that we're not going to charge them like Marshfield charges us, commercial rate. And that, obviously, in the event that we're their situation, they too would provide us, I think you said on a weekly basis.
Yep.
That's all, just so it's mutual.
Yep.
Can I have a motion to accept the letter of agreement?
Yeah, I was going to say, we should probably put those in there, I'll motion to accept it, and then we can sign it, but just providing we just make it mutual with respect to what they're asking of us, that it's the same if it were the other way around, that's
Yep.
all.
Yep.
All right.
That's
All right, I'll
fine.
move to accept the letter agreement between the towns of Cohasset and the Scituate regarding the provisions of water and current emergency circumstances, conditioned on those two changes.
Second?
Second by Mr. Vignani. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And,
Good. And-
Mr. Chair, we'll send a letter to the Board of Selectmen and the Water Commissioners and the town manager thanking them for
I was just going to say, I
coming
think
to
we
our
should
aid.
send them a letter
Yep.
thanking them and their town for doing just
Yep.
that. That's a nice way of collaborating under desperate times, and it's going to be reciprocal and reciprocated in the event that they have it.
That's all I had, Marty.
Very good. Okay, so we're going to move on to 7:20, welcoming Patrick O'Connor, the state senator. He's going to give us an update on state issues and some feedback on some of our town issues.
Senator, come on up, have a seat, and welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen.
It's your first time here
It is.
as senator. We appreciate that.
Thanks, Pat.
I have a handout. We're only able to make 6 of them, I believe.
We'll share.
Don't worry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So first off, thank you for giving me the invitation and the opportunity to speak to you today and to the town of Scituate. I am new to the state senate, only been in just under 4 months, but I'm very familiar with the town of Scituate. My great-uncle Ed McCann was a town administrator in Scituate for a long time, and still have family and roots here today, so very important part of me belongs to Scituate, and I love coming here during the summer times especially. You guys have so much to offer, and what's been going on in Scituate Harbor is really, really positive as far as the developments that are going on there, the commercial development that's going on there. So I just wanted to first give a little brief rundown of what we've been able to accomplish in 4 months. When I got elected and sworn into the state senate on May 18th, we got right into budget debate. It was literally the day before budget amendments were due for the state budget, for the Senate side of the state budget. We filed 58 amendments to that in 24-hour period to basically work on behalf of our communities to do as much as we possibly can. Amendments that would increase Chapter 70 money from the $25 per pupil threshold, which we were able to accomplish to get up to $55. Money for a dewatering pump for the town of Scituate, as well as the town of Duxbury, to share, which we're trying to get the money out, and really working with Representative Cantwell on a lot of the issues that we needed to catch up on without having a state senator for the better part of, for all of 2016, to basically try and do as much housekeeping as we possibly could and take care of the issues that were still in the state senate that had been unresolved. So just very simply, the Chapter 70 money statewide, as I said, we were very thrilled to be able to get the number up from $25 per pupil to $55 per pupil. As an 11-year municipal elected official, I know that that's not enough. It's not even close. When you figure in utilities and fixed costs and collective bargaining, it's not going to cover that amount. But getting that increase, I think, was very important, really to show our commitment and to funding Chapter 70 and giving our cities and towns as much money as we possibly can back in local aid. So overall, statewide, that figure went up $102 million. And what that meant for Scituate specifically was that it went from 5.18 to 5.34, which is a $160,000 increase from last fiscal year, roughly 3.1%. And I'm glad to say that when the volatility of the stock market kind of crept into our state's budget this year, and we were able to make some tough decisions, local aid was never even on the table. Our commitment in the state legislature and the governor's commitment is strong to municipal economies, making sure that you have the tools that you need to build your local economy, because that is the backbone that the entire Commonwealth relies on. Local aid, unrestricted local aid, went up roughly $42 million statewide, a 4.3% increase. And what that meant for Scituate was that it went from $1.85 million to $1.93 million, roughly $79,000, almost an $80,000 increase from last year. The next slide is a chart basically just of fiscal year 10 to 17. You can see the dips that happened when the housing market took a hit and the economy took a hit in fiscal years 11 and 12. And slowly from that period of time, as our recovery has taken shape, you can see the increases, and the actual number in Scituate local aid this year, both in Chapter 70 and in unrestricted, is the highest. It's a record level, and obviously from year to year you'll hit records, but to come up almost $500,000 from the low we were at in fiscal year 2012, really, in my opinion, shows a commitment, both of the previous administration and this administration, to bringing money back to cities and towns, and also, hopefully, that trajectory will continue to go in that direction, because we know how difficult it is to set a budget. I know specifically, I was a counselor in Weymouth for 11 years, and I understand firsthand the liabilities that are built into budgets. I understand how difficult it is to keep and protect essential services. So my goal as the state senator is and always will be to bring as much money as I possibly can back to the 8 communities that I represent, because that's where I know that the dollar will be best spent. Just a general local aid summary. The unrestricted local aid going up by 4.3%, Chapter 70 going up by 3.1%, and a total increase of 3.4% in Situate's local aid, $240,000 increase over last year's budget in both the Chapter 70 and unrestricted numbers. The state budget itself actually went up less than 2%, so to get 3.4% increase, I think is telling that Situate's definitely on the priority list of cities and towns to reinvest in as far as education and unrestricted local aid goes. Just some more numbers for you here. The Chapter 90 money. We had $566,038 brought in for Chapter 90 money. The CPA match at 29.7%. And now to the legislation. The 4 months that I was in office, we were very busy, because it's the last months of a 2-year cycle that the legislature goes through. So everything that's sort of backed up comes out towards the end as far as bills go. We're able to provide in the budget funding for long-term insurance coverage for Lyme disease, which has been incredibly important throughout this district. The number of cases continue to rise, and the number of symptoms continue to rise, and people that are chronically getting ill from Lyme disease is all throughout my district, and we really hear about it a lot, and from Scituate especially, as we continue to sort of, build on where woods used to be, and you have the deers and the ticks that follow. As I said before, we got $35,000 to fund a dewatering pump for Duxbury, Marshfield, and Scituate fire departments to have independent means to aid flooded properties. This money hasn't been released yet, and due to the volatility of the stock market, we've already sent off a letter to get this money as soon as we possibly can back to the cities, to the towns, in order to get this purchased. The HOME Act, which expanded our commitment to veteran services. One of the things we can be incredibly proud of is that we lead the nation in how we treat our veterans when they return home from service, and this continues on that. I was proud that I had a piece of legislation that was part of that actually extends benefits to spouses of veterans after they pass away, so that if they have a real estate tax benefit, or if they have a federal tax benefit, that benefit doesn't expire upon the passing of the veteran, that it actually continues on to the spouse. The Municipal Modernization Bill, which I was very proud to serve on the conference committee on, one of 6 people hashing out the Senate and the House differences in the bill. And this bill really does cut red tape. We were able to get a lot of the things accomplished. There's still some things out there like double polls and a lot of the issues that with liquor licenses and things like that. But this really kind of allows municipalities to be their own, without having so much intrusion from the state, which was what we heard about from municipal elected officials, from town administrators, from town managers, was that this is something that needs to get done, is that we put together a comprehensive bill that's going to make it easier for towns to operate and not have the state be sort of the overbearing big brother that it has been in years past. And the Economic Development Bill, which we were able to secure $918 million for state investment over the next 5 years in projects, and that's going to be something that I think will benefit Scituate greatly with a lot of the infrastructure projects that you have, both here on the roadway as well as out at sea. And the last thing that I wanted to touch on, which I know has been a big issue here, and it's been one of the issues that I decided to really run on, and it's the opiate epidemic that we're currently facing, which is just an absolute tragedy. It's indiscriminately killing a generation of people, and we need to do something about it, and the governor's commitment really has been strong. I would say that we are, again, the model for the rest of the United States and how we are treating this epidemic, and an increase of $13 million, which is an 8% increase over last year, which brings the total to $171 million is our commitment that the state has provided to funding not only the structure of the addiction, not only the structure of those who are in recovery, getting them the community-based support that they need, but also providing grants to our law enforcement to get this poison off our streets and penalize the people who are putting this on here. And,
Can I comment on that real quick?
Sure.
I mean, the town of Scituate is a leader in that. You know,
Absolutely.
We've got a FACTS organization that's doing training at the state level and at the federal level, and really, we have a federal grant that's funded it for, Tricia, how long was it, 2 years or 3 years?
5,
5 years, sorry.
$625,000.
So it's $625,000 for 5 years. It's funded the program. Next year is the last year that the funding runs out. And so we've got this great program in place that's doing wonderful things, that's teaching other communities, that's leading the whole nation, really. I mean, the director of it goes nationwide and gives speeches at conferences and what have you. And we're baffled as to how we're going to get the funds to keep this going forward. We don't think it's going to come federally, and we're hoping that we can get some help from the state to keep the programs going as strong as they are.
no, absolutely, you have my word that I'll do as much as I possibly can. I went to the Citizen of the Year Award last year and heard all the stories of how great this organization has been and how the impact they've made. I talked to Representative Cantwell about how he's been down to D.C., and this is something that is at the forefront, in my opinion. You have my word, I will absolutely fight for funding for this project. If it has to come from an earmark or we take it to the state budget, this is something that I'll definitely work on.
Right. I mean, we were just talking about this recently, and we don't know where the funds are going to come from, and we're going to have to start looking outside of it, so I appreciate your support on that.
Yeah, no, we'll work together on this, absolutely.
We can't allow the program to end, you know? It's got to continue on, one way or another.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
the reality of it is that it's not just benefiting Scituate, it benefits your district, you know, so all the communities are going to benefit by it, and that's, hopefully, you know, those communities will take a look towards what FACTS has done here and try to duplicate that all throughout the towns that you represent, which is why we're really hopeful that maybe you can be effective in talking to a bipartisan approach. This is a dire situation. You're well aware of it. Everybody is. But it's so easy to forget about it until the next person ODs or ends up dying, and then you read the obituary and you see the tragedy that goes on. So that's one of the first things that I had on my list to address, to make a comment, and hope that, you know, you're able to do just that. Reach across and talk to both sides and avoid the politics and say, this is about our people, our residents, our constituents. The other things I was hoping that maybe, you know, you take a look at in addition to seawalls, as you know. You know, it's not just Scituate. You've got Hull, you've got Hingham. Again, your constituency there could certainly benefit by some of the funding. It's never going to be solved short-term. It's a long-term issue. But little by little, we're all chipping at it, trying to make a difference on it. And, you know, your help would be effective, and certainly in the Senate, to try to accomplish that. The other two things in the short term I think that could be very helpful for our town is, you know, we're looking at public safety building with a traffic light. I think we're in the process of getting that done, but if you can facilitate any difficulty that exists with DOT, that would be helpful. And also, across the street here, you know, there's an intersection here with the light, but we don't have, you know, like a handicap accessible way of going from one side of the road to the other, and that's a state, you know, ownership. They own the road, they own the light. It would be very helpful if there was any way that you could help facilitate that, given the fact that we have the high school here, we've got a sidewalk across the way, and when they did it, they really didn't do it, they didn't do it to code. But I think for handicap accessibility on 3A, that would be phenomenal for the town, and many people would certainly appreciate it. And I think the only other thing was anything you can do with roads. Oh, I have one last one, which you'll probably be happy about, but roads, you know, I know 123 was done in Norwell through some state funding and things. If there's anything there, at least with our roads that are state, like 123 on our end, would be helpful. The final thing, which is my big push, is, you know, at some point our town's going to make a decision whether we're going to remain in the Plymouth County Commission or not. And I have to tell you, from my perspective, it has not been beneficial for the town to be a part of that, because a lot of our money goes, and yet we're not seeing any benefits. And if our board or my board decides that they want to opt out, I certainly think it would be very helpful from the state perspective, because I know in the past, there's been some pushback by representatives to maintain the county commission system. I'm not convinced that it's still worth maintaining, at least for purposes of the Scituate residents. So if that were to come to bear, I certainly would appreciate your support in working with our town, if need be, to opt out of the Plymouth County Commission and go from there.
Absolutely. Just to touch on some of those, the seawalls, I was down with Kevin and Representative Cantwell at the seawall construction that's currently going on. It's pretty amazing, actually, to take a look at that. That's the first time it's been opened up since really the Great Depression, and, you know, to where they built it then, where the water was, to where it is now, is quite remarkable. I think that construction's going good, and obviously there's so much money that's going to be needed to complete all of the seawall projects, not just throughout my district, but also in the North Shore. We're looking for money. We're on a constant conversation with Secretary Beaton in order to try and facilitate some of these funds that are wrapped up in environmental bond bills, to try and, you know, get the ball rolling on that. And I do believe that this, you know, some progress has been made. Obviously, everyone's looking at the stock market, they're looking at the economy and trying to see how much of that they can actually spend before it comes out. But I'll be fighting tooth and nail to get as much money as I possibly can for Scituate and the rest of the towns in my district. And I think we're in a good position to secure a lot of those funds as well, because of the work that Representative Cantwell's done for years in putting, you know, the bug in people's ear about how important these projects are, and then sort of piggybacking on that and using some of the relationships that we've been able to build up to say this is important, this is something that needs to happen now, because, you know, you see it all the time. Scituate, you know, probably every other winter pretty much is on the news. If not every winter, and you see, you know, the same locations and breaching of seawalls. And it's important that we get this infrastructure fixed for the community and for the homeowners. Secondly, the handicap accessibility on 3A, I totally agree with you on that, and we'll get working on that. The traffic issues here too. I went to the Scituate high school graduation, and I saw how much of a you know, situation that it is outside during when there's high traffic periods of time. So whatever you want us to do, bring people down, have people look at that.
Good.
More than happy to do that. And then infrastructure issues, always looking out to try and see how we can possibly secure funding through whatever comes up, a bond bill,
Right.
you know, projects, coastal zone management, all the things that, you know, we could possibly get funding from. So you have my word that I will absolutely be on top of all this.
Sean, do you have anything?
Before he wraps up, the only question I had was the CPC, was it, right now you're at 29.7% per hour, every dollar we put in.
It's 29.7 cents.
You see it going up. I mean, you know, I don't know, Patrick, but if you know, but Scituate was at 3% right from the get-go. One of the few towns, Tony, I mean, there weren't that many towns that did what we did right from the beginning, so do you see that going up at all? Because there's been talk that maybe we should reduce it or eliminate it, and, you know, it's done a lot of great things in the town, but...
Yeah, no, I think that the CPC really does serve a great purpose in all the communities as far as being able to do capital projects when the budget's tight. I don't see it going up. There's a push to continue to bring it up. I filed an amendment to add more money to the CPC in this year's budget that was rejected. You know, I think that rather than actually giving more money to it, they're going to give more flexibility in how you can spend the money. About 3 years ago, they allowed for rehabilitation of parks and playgrounds rather than actually just having to build a new playground. So I think that inside of this, that the money may not be there. You know, I'm glad that it's still currently at 29.7%, as poor as that is. But I do believe that they'll give more flexibility of what you can use the funds for, and sort of have that look as more of additional local aid that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is providing, rather than specific aid for, you know, 3 highlighted projects.
Along those lines...
That's fine.
Go ahead.
Well, we've run into a bit of an issue on limits on recreation. Obviously, we're a seacoast town. You're very limited on what you can do. It has to be a land-type recreation. So a lot of the seacoast towns that wanted to use it for boating or things like that, there's an issue with using CPC funds for that. So I think that that's something that really needs to be looked at. It's pretty, you know, that's what you're going to say, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it only makes sense that if these are the needs that you have to, preserve the...
Our recreation doesn't stop at the beach.
It
No.
goes on to the water, boating,
Absolutely.
sailing, programs like that,
That's right.
So historically, the CPC Coalition has been reticent to cherry-pick the application of the CPC projects that may appear customized. So it's sort of one-size-fits-all for the entire state. And you probably are familiar with how long it took them to just do the amendment that finally let us apply funds to existing fields as opposed to creating new ones. So it's probably an uphill battle, but I really believe there is a distinction between communities, the 76 coastal communities that have recreational water activities as part of their recreational services that are separate and distinct from perhaps other communities that might have mountain hiking or something like that. So we've sent a letter, our CPC has sent a letter to the governor, I believe, relative to that. You might be getting a copy along with Representative Cantwell, but I think there's a strong case that can be made that, coastal communities or communities with bodies of water where the community has recreational programs should be allowed. I mean, the response has really been it must be to the land. It must be attached to the land. So that lets it out right there in terms of anything coastal in terms of the water that we could use for what is really in keeping with the spirit of the CPA law, I think.
Yeah, no, I think this is an easy, on paper, it seems like an absolutely easy fix. It's something that should be done and should be addressed, especially, for the district that I have, 7 of the 8 towns, are solely on the South Shore coast. So this is something that I'll definitely take up, and, it's the things like this that, we definitely want to know about, and, you're on the front lines of these issues, and I thank you, and to use us as a resource in every way possible for issues like this, because this is good. We can file legislation to this effect and have a hearing and say, why shouldn't we be doing this? Which I think there's, working on Beacon Hill and now, serving the South Shore, you see stuff that seems like a no-brainers, but it takes, like the recreation rehabilitation piece. All you needed was one word and definition in the CPC, Community Preservation Act language, but it took, I think, 6 to 8 years to get that.
It's called an act of
passed.
Congress, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Basically.
there's not enough good things being done for cities and towns that can be done swiftly. The municipal modernization one was one of the ones that was able to get done very quickly, but a lot of this stuff, when I first got up to the State House in 2006, and when, I see the stuff now, it's still there, it's still kicking around. Very well-intended pieces of legislation that will help communities and also help individuals, seniors, veterans, et cetera, that just get stuck in committee, and for whatever reason it is, they don't get out. One of my goals is to try and see why and to fight for those to get out.
Appreciate it. Laura, did you have anything for Senator O'Connor?
No, just my apologies for being tardy.
No problem.
The meeting in Boston went longer, so I apologize. And thank you for coming.
No, my pleasure. And, we're following the flood map issue. I believe I'm headed over there after this. The traffic on Route 3A, the water shortage, and also seawall construction and Chief Justice Cushing Park. Obviously, we're trying to fix the road there. So those are just some of the issues that we sort of came into in the past month or so. But we're going to work as hard as we can, and please contact my office with any sort of issue that comes up. Use my office as a resource. We're here to help you. I know what it's like to be a municipal elected official and understand the the strain that you guys have in dealing with your budget, year in and year out, and trying to find funds to make things work. And as I said before, my goal is to grow the local economy so you guys can continue to invest in essential services.
Thank you. Does anybody in the audience have anything for Senator O'Connor? Any questions or anything? No? Great.
You're doing a good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate it here. Moving on, I don't see Mark Sullivan.
Well, can we act on it?
Yeah,
Only
we
because they've done it
discuss-
before,
yeah.
and you got a hearing in about 3 minutes.
Yep.
So this is, what is it?
Annual Tootsie Roll Drive, is it?
Yeah.
The Knights of Columbus Annual Tootsie Roll Drive.
Something they do every year.
Yep, exactly.
Fundraising, yep, for disabled.
Go
You got it.
supermarkets, things
And they
like
do it at
that.
the transfer station and things like that.
All goes,
Karen has the proclamation that she could read. In my packet?
I'll read it.
I got it. Do you want me to read that, and that's what we approve? Is that the process? To read
Actually,
the
make a motion. I'll make a motion. I'm going to move to approve the Knights of Columbus Annual Tootsie Roll Drive from October 14th to October 16th, 2016, Friday through Sunday, at various locations in the town of Scituate, including various businesses and the transfer station.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you want to read it?
Do you want me to read it? Okay. Whereas the Board of Selectmen would like to recognize a very worthy fundraising event sponsored by the local Scituate Council of the Knights of Columbus, and whereas this campaign will be conducted from Friday, October 14th to Sunday, October 16th, 2016 via their well-known Tootsie Roll Drive, which will benefit the physically challenged and learning disabled in various communities throughout our Commonwealth, now therefore be it resolved that the entire town of Scituate and its Board of Selectmen thank the Knights of Columbus for their continued dedication to charitable organizations and hereby proclaim October 14th through October 16th, 2016 as Knights of Columbus Days for the physically challenged and learning disabled, and urge all citizens of Scituate to participate in this very important effort. Signed this 20th day of September 2016, the Town of Scituate Board of Selectmen.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay.
Just
Next, we're going to move on to a public hearing.
Perfect timing, Marty.
7:45.
Discussion vote of the Stillwater change of location. Tracy Colamico. Come on up. How are you, Tracy?
Good, how are you?
Okay, just for everybody, just tell us, I know what you're doing and everything, but go into like a little bit about what your move is and things like that.
Sure. So Julia Lazinski's with me. She owns the Fresh Feast in Cohasset. So what we're looking to do is move diagonally across the street from where I am, which is where the Feathered Nest was most recently, the antique store. It's abuts Mary Lou's. The space is a little bit larger, about double the size where I am right now. They have a septic tank that can handle what we want to do, which is more of a food and wine concept. So the idea is that we would operate under one physical location, but as two separate businesses. So the wine store will be separate from what Julia will have in place there, which is a small catering office to do dinners to go, sandwiches, events, and whatnot, and basically partner together to create a new concept of pairing food and wine together.
So your business is primarily in Cohasset, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Are you going to sell sandwiches?
Yeah, I mean, we're still tinkering with the
Deli kind of?
what it's going to actually be. You know, it might take some practice to see if it's going to work. But, I mean, I'm definitely planning on doing dinners to go for people when they get off the train, just easy things to grab. Then they can go over to Tracy's side and buy a bottle of wine, and it's all going to be separate so that, you know, it's just, we can bring the two things together to make it something nice for people when they get off the train and easier, drive more revenue to the community and get more traffic going in Scituate, because I know that it's really, it struggles, you know, and it would be nice to get something in there that people are excited, a little, you know, get out, get excited.
Right. And it's one-stop shop.
Yeah.
So they can go to one place to get dinner and
we have
wine.
tons of parking, which I'm
Right.
super psyched
And that's one of the
about.
big things for me is parking. It's been a struggle. Most of the time, the spots right in front of me are taken by Jamie's. So there's more parking on both sides of the street in that location. There's more visibility from all angles. When you drive into North Scituate, it's really the first place you see.
Sure.
So we're hoping it really drives more revenue for both of us as well.
Yeah, it's going to be probably nice to have that space compared to what you've been trying to deal with at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just make sure the separation, I mentioned this to you before, Tracy, when you mentioned it. I think it's a grand idea. I know Julia's your operation in Cohasset. It's a great place. It's very successful, so I could see the benefit of it here in Scituate. And you'll probably make a lot of money because a lot of people enjoy your good food. But the thing is, just make sure there's a separation, Tracy, and I'm not sure how you're setting it up, but so there's no opportunity, when you're closed and you're still open, Julia, in the morning or whatever. That's the
Right, and we're
important
going to put our hours the same.
Okay.
So there wouldn't be a case where Julia's, it would actually, if there was anything, it'd be the opposite, where I may be open later, but there wouldn't be a case where Julia's open where I'm not. And obviously, we have to put strict things in places with employees and.
Do you intend, Julia, to have like seating at all? I don't.
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, I was going to put a bench so people,
Okay.
when they're waiting, they can
Fair enough.
sit down.
I was going to say, that's fine, just make sure you have adequate parking. I'm not sure what the, if you do, but just consult the building commissioner, they'll help you out, okay?
Cool. Yeah, and we have the area totally separate, so like I'm going to be on one side and a quarter of the store, and then the rest is her. We separated by color. We're going to have separate registers.
It makes sense to kind of make it obviously separate for purposes of liability, but also not so separate that you feel like you have to walk in one door and out the other. I get the concept. I think it's a novel concept, and I think it's something that could be very successful, especially North Scituate, and I think, it lends itself in that location for North Scituate, so.
We hope so.
Yeah.
I just want to build on that. I think it's a great idea. I think North Scituate really needs it, so congratulations. Talk to me just a little bit, because I can't tell from the floor plan what the separation really is. If there's two different unique businesses, will there, what rules will you put in place to ensure that, say, one of your staff goes in the back, whatever, and somebody wants to go over into the food side and buy liquor, what sort of assurances are you putting in to make sure that that doesn't happen?
They can't. It won't be set
Okay.
up in our system.
Two separate point-of-sale systems.
Yeah,
Okay, so they wouldn't even be able to ring it up?
No,
Okay, great.
because the ID scanning system, everything is on my side.
Okay, perfect.
So alcohol can't be sold at all at her register. So when you walk in the door, you actually have to walk in and take a right to get to the area where Julia's going to be.
Okay.
And where you would go straight and over to the area I'm going to be, and the registers are actually on two completely opposite sides of the store.
Yeah.
So it'll be a transition for people, it'll be a learning curve to understand, and probably a bit of a headache for people to understand that they have to go to two registers, but it's the way we need
There
to
are
do it.
places like that all over New England, so that share spaces and do that, so.
It's kind of like the fruit center,
fruit-
right?
yeah,
I mean, you have
in
to go
Hingham.
Yep.
a bunch of different places.
Now, this is the O'Donohue Insurance, Feathers Nest.
Yes.
used to be there, right? That they have a drive-up. Is that something that you're thinking of trying to use?
I know.
I know you can't
You
use
can't
it, Tracy,
utilize
but
it.
I was wondering whether you could.
It'd be wonderful to utilize it down the road, but,
Like for people, that's all.
yeah, it's not really set up right now to be able to handle that, and they've closed it off, so it would cost a lot of money to try and
Something to
reopen
think
that
about,
back up.
not for your business, but for
But it
hers.
does, yeah.
Would be
It
good for
does.
me, yeah.
But the nice thing is that you can drive in one side and out the other, too, so it creates a turnaround for people, and if there's big catering orders or big alcohol orders, it'll make it easier for people to get things out to their car. Which, same with snow, too, so that's been a big problem for me, because not this past winter, but the winter before, when there was 6 feet of snow in North Scituate, you couldn't get to my store. It was pretty much impossible. So it'll be a little easier in this location.
Sean, you have any questions?
Yeah, about the drive-up, thanks. That's it. No, I thought it was great. That'd be awesome. I don't think Mary Lou's would love it much, you know? But no, I wish you luck. Yeah, all the questions were asked ahead of time. Will your hours stay the same? And I know yours will be a little smaller, so,
Mine will stay the same,
Good.
yes.
Okay.
good. Yeah, no, it's great addition, anything to help
Sounds
the
great.
village. Yeah, good luck.
Really good.
Yeah, the
Awesome.
only thing I'd
Question?
emphasize is the liquor side of it. You've got all the systems now in place with the license checking, and, you may want to train some of the people. You may have people that work on both sides of it, I don't know. But just stay diligent with that. That's really our biggest concern.
Okay.
When do you think you'll open, pending all the approvals with the states, et cetera?
So I can physically drive this to the state tomorrow,
Okay.
which will help. And then it's just a matter of them doing their investigation. Our goal is, on my side, the first week in October, because I'm up against a lease. I have to move out of my current space. Julia's looking closer to November 1st, so. I would like, and even if she's not open by November 1st, we're trying to do some sort of event the day that Fall for Scituate is going on.
Nice.
Great.
That's exciting, good.
Can I have a motion?
Any questions in the audience? Or-
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know that there's a business person from North Scituate. I'm surprised he or she hasn't said anything. Oh, there we go.
This is really wonderful for
Beautiful.
It's an expansion of an existing business, and also the first space will now become another retail space. So things are moving along, and this is just really a wonderful thing. And Tracy is absolutely terrific. And Julia will be right there with her. And she's only 3 doors away from me, and I couldn't be happier.
That's
Okay.
right.
First customer.
Mono Boutique is going to be coming into my space, which is a gift shop that currently exists in Marshfield. So
Really?
this will be her second location.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, and it's all ocean, it's all like Duxbury, Scituate, Marshfield things.
Great.
So
Nice.
it's going to be, that'll be fun too.
Anybody else in the audience?
Feather's Nest, did that go anywhere, or?
They're just gone. Yeah.
Retired.
Gotcha.
Okay, could I have a motion?
Move to vote to approve a change of location for Stillwater's Wine and Gourmet from 366 Gannett Road to 776 Country Way, Scituate, Massachusetts.
Second?
Second by Mr. Harris. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Good luck.
Good luck. Good luck. It's going to be great.
Thank
It's
you.
going to be great.
Thank you for your support.
Anything we can do for North
Now you
Situate
just got to
is
see these
just...
guys in there.
She sees me once in a while, so...
Where I'm at currently?
No, where are you going to be?
So when you, next to Mary Lou's, do you know where Mary Lou's
Yeah,
coffee
in
is?
North Situate.
So it's attached right to Mary Lou's. It's sort of like a corner building. Mary Lou's is here. The building
Is it OD's?
No, Wilbur's Ice Cream is over here in a
The nice brick one. Yeah.
It's before that.
It
used to be a bank.
Yes, it was a bank, right.
I've been through that drive-through many times.
Yes, but a bank and then Stevens.
So the Feathered Nest moved into that building?
They did, now they've...
Really?
Next, we have a discussion and a vote on the contract for the leased school buses.
Did you go by
John
and find the
McCarthy
fire
is Paul.
station and mine it?
Paul's not here,
Mr.
John?
Dahlman couldn't make
No,
it.
you get me tonight, so Paul
that's okay.
had a meeting out of town.
That's
so.
good.
Yep.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you all doing?
John.
Very good.
Things are moving along behind us here, huh?
Yeah, I say. It'll be over pretty soon, I'm telling you right now.
I'm telling you, I mean, with
Fast as they're going.
the drought's helping some people, I guess,
I know.
you know?
The gymnasium's getting bleachers, isn't it, John?
The gymnasium will not have bleachers. You do not get bleachers in a middle school gymnasium. All you get is a basketball court.
Is there one side that at least has the ability to put bleachers?
It's not big enough. They don't allow you the space.
Like
So you
Rockland
just
has
stand?
like 3 rows, it's not like that?
No, and Hingham has a little bit of space too. If you've seen their middle school, they have a little space too.
We have
We
none.
don't, because of the size. Standing room only.
Bring a chair, Tony.
You've been to the one in Duxbury?
Oh, it's a nightmare.
The fans are in the play.
Well, I'm glad you told me, because I've been telling everybody there was bleachers, so now I'll have to just tell them there
No,
are
if you
no bleachers.
undo that.
They might be getting some
Just
calls,
blow that
John.
wall out if you...
Yeah,
Send them over to your department.
yeah, exactly. I'll take care of them. So tonight I'm here for you to award a bus lease to Wells Fargo. They are financing 3 of our lease buses, as well as a handicap bus that we're going to be leasing, so technically it's 4 buses in total. We started leasing buses 3 years ago, and our current 3-year lease is up, so we had to lease the 3 additional buses. That's what you have here tonight, is the 3 replacements. And we also decided to add a handicap-accessible bus as well. There aren't a lot of these on the South Shore. Matter of fact, I believe Topman is the only one in the area that currently has a handicap-accessible bus, so we've had to lease buses from them for field trips and other things. So we will now have a handicap-accessible bus. The regular school buses will be 3-year leases. The handicap bus will be a 5-year lease. And there's purchase options at the end of each of these. The handicap bus may be something we purchase. I don't know. When we get to that point, we'll take a look at it. But the 3-year bus leases will definitely turn back. This has been very beneficial to us in terms of having new buses on the roads. Our maintenance costs have gone down to almost zero in terms of keeping these buses turned over. We're spending $164,000 a year out of our operational budget on bus leases, and in the past, the town was trying to keep up with 1 or 2 new buses a year, which was impossible to keep up with, and that would cost you anywhere from $90,000 to $180,000 if you got 2 buses, and it would take you 8 8 years to replace all of them. We replace them all in 3 years, $164,000 in total, and our maintenance costs have gone way down. And of course, we've moved from 4-tiered busing to 2-tiered busing, which is better educationally. So this has been a very good move for the town of Scituate, and, we're going to continue to lease buses. We actually may start leasing our special education vans as well, because we're running into the same problem with them, 150,000 miles on them, and it's much more beneficial to lease these. So anyways, tonight, what I'm going to ask you to do is to award the lease to Wells Fargo for 3 leased 77-passenger vans. You have the amount there of $258,939. That's the total we'll pay over 3 years. And then you also will award to Wells Fargo for 1 leased handicap bus for a 5-year period for $96,995, $55.95.
Don,
Yep,
you have a $1 buyout on all these vehicles.
we do.
Do you intend to keep them? I mean, that
We
has to
don't.
hurt the rate.
We don't. Yeah, and the reason why we don't intend to keep them is because the longer you keep them, the higher your maintenance costs. So, we have basically taken a look at this financially, and it's much better to lease them.
So is that I imagine if you didn't have the option to buy it,
Yeah.
the interest rate and the rate would have been cheaper.
We've got a very good rate with this, and we've got a extremely good price on these buses. DATCO is the company out of Connecticut that's providing these buses. We had bids, no one came close to them, and so we have done extremely well.
Yeah, 2.5%.
Yeah, with DATCO, so. So this is again, financially advantageous for us to do, and it does give you the option down the road, if you do want to buy these buses, you still can.
After 3 years, John, is that
After 3
correct?
years,
After
right.
3.
Yep,
So,
and 5 on the handicap.
And we're going to keep doing this, so we do 3 this year, 3 next year? And
No, actually, we're not going to have any next year, because last year we did 13. So we did 3, and those are up, and then we did 13 last year.
What do we have for
Yeah.
total of buses, 16?
We have a total of actually 18, and the handicap bus will make 19. We still own 2, so we kept 2 of our, I think they're 2010, 2011 as spares.
Right.
And so we use those as spares, and we just keep the lease buses on the road.
No, I get it. Yep.
John, just a question, this is probably, so, do we have a certain amount of miles that each bus is supposed to have a year? I wondered about that, because sometimes
Yeah.
we'll use them for sporting events and whatnot.
We do, and because we've gone to 2-tiered busing, we don't even come close to the allotted miles we have. I forget whether it's 13 or 15, I think it's 15,000, we don't even come close to it.
I was just curious
yeah.
about that.
Yeah, when we went to 2-tiered busing, again, the buses are only going around town twice. Our sporting events, most of them are close by. We don't generally go long distance, so, we're able to spread the buses out, and it's really inexpensive.
Do you ever think of doing another bus run later in the day?
Yep.
Some districts, for the kids that play sports, or
Yep.
the kids that do stuff, you have
Yep.
at 5 o'clock, or
Yep.
kids that have clubs after school.
Yeah, we're definitely going to look at that. We started one last spring for Metco students, and we actually do a late run where our students on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, our Metco students, who it was very difficult for them to stay after school because there was only, their one bus going back and forth. And so we started a late run for them. And we involve Cohasset as well. So what we do is we pick up at Gates, we pick up at the high school, we pick up at Cohasset Middle High School. We drive to UMass Boston T-stop. The parents either meet us there or the kids get on the T, and the bus comes back. And it's been extremely successful. So we might look at expanding this to try to do this for our own students in town as well.
Excellent.
Motion?
That would be great.
Move the Board of Selectmen approve the Wells Fargo lease for 3 leased 77-passenger buses not to exceed the price of $258,939.
Second?
Second by Mr. Harris. Further discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye. I'll move the Board of Selectmen approve the Wells Fargo lease of 1 leased handicap bus not to exceed the price of $96,955.95.
Second?
Second by Mr. Vignani. Further discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
I have a discussion actually, too, sorry.
okay.
Oh.
I just wanted to thank you for considering this to us, because it's been very painful for my son to be on a short man all the time. And I really appreciate it. It makes a big difference. He's looking forward to be able to ride with his peers. Mr. McCarthy is exactly right that there's a shortage of these buses. And for instance, last year, both field trips, he wasn't able to go on a big bus. Which, you know, when you're in 5th grade, it matters.
Sure.
So I just wanted to, thank you for doing this. It really does make a big difference.
Thank you.
I just want to point out, do we need to say 5 years? It's a different length of lease, because the motion for the 2 buses says 3, and this one should say 5, right?
Correct.
So we just want to add that in?
So moved.
Second.
Made.
I'm sorry, I didn't see
Do you wanna
the
just-
motion.
You know what, I'm
That's
going
the point.
I'm gonna move to rescind my motion, okay?
Okay.
Because we didn't even vote on it, did we?
Well, neither one of them have the years in it anyway.
Yes, it does.
So-
The
First one did.
motion did.
Yeah,
It said
second
3
one
years
should have
for 2
I'll move the
buses.
Board of Selectmen approve the Wells Fargo lease of for 5 years, of a handicap bus not to exceed the price of $96,955.95.
Doesn't have the years in it.
Second.
Second.
Doesn't
No.
have the years in it. It has the number of buses, it doesn't have the years. So if you're going to do the years, you can do it on both.
Almost 3 months.
Second on the 5-year lease for the handicap van, handicap bus.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So you're going to modify it for the number of years?
Should, probably, because it doesn't have it in there.
I moved that my motion earlier reflects that it has 3 years for the 3 leased 77-passenger buses.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. Further discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great,
We got
thank you.
that straight, John.
Thanks, John.
Perfect.
And the resident name and address for the minutes?
That is, Ms. Beatty, we need your address.
Just your name and address, just for the minutes, please.
JDA and Bradley Cheese
Thank you. Okay. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, but I guess it's okay, right?
There's nothing wrong with being ahead of schedule, Mr. Chair.
I'm sure that will change.
Sooner that we can-
That will
Let's
change.
slow it down a little.
I think your next item will slow it down.
Okay, I bet it will. So we're going to discuss special town meeting, review articles and draft warrants, blah, blah, blah.
So you received in your packet the draft warrant, the working warrant. It's by no means final yet. We have one more meeting to finalize everything. So some items here, actually all the items are up for discussion and the board's ultimate approval. You also received all the selected background information that I traditionally prepare for you. The capital, since there are a couple of capital items on this, the Capital Planning Committee is meeting tomorrow at 6:30, so they will have their review in, subject to any changes or direction you give me tonight. So I'm just happy to go through them one by one, and I think all the people are here and to address, and I don't know if Kevin's watching in the office and will come in shortly, so. No, there are not, ma'am, sorry. Marty, do you have any questions?
No?
So do you want to
No,
go
no,
by
no.
them one by?
Yeah, let's go
Yeah,
through
let's
them
go
one
Go
at a
through
time.
one, yeah.
You want to go through every article?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have a hard copy?
I don't think we do.
Three.
Number one, $1 million for moving these items. Nancy, you want to go over that?
Sure. Do you want me to come to the mic, or can I do it from here? Whatever.
Okay.
Go to the mic, please.
Wherever you want.
Get it on TV. So Article 1 is the fiscal year 2017 budget reconciliation of $1,033,600.
Okay, so this is what we would normally do in the special town meeting, is any adjustments that need to be done to the current year's budget. There are a couple of things that have come up since we've started the fiscal year that we hadn't planned on. The first would be a proposed transfer from free cash of $14,000 to the general liability insurance account, and this would cover flood insurance for the Scituate Harbor Community Building, otherwise known as Pier 44, which makes sense, especially with the new flood maps being accepted at this particular town meeting and with what's currently being housed there, and that we've already put into effect what we need to do with the insurance company to have that coverage come into play. The next would be the same for the Sand Hills Pump Station. That's a key pump station, and that would also be covered by flood insurance. It would be paid proposed by a transfer from sewer retained earnings for $8,600.
Is 8,600 or 86,000?
8,600.
When you say covered by flood insurance, what do you mean?
So right now, we have normal general and property liability, but if we actually have a flood, we wouldn't be covered for it.
Would not be covered by
We would not
flood.
be covered for it. Now, if we were to have some type of a damage from a storm, if it's a federally declared, a presidential declaration of disaster, we would get FEMA reimbursement of 75% less whatever was covered by insurance. If we don't get a federal disaster declaration, we're on the hook for the whole cost if it's flood. If it was something covered by our general property liability insurance, we would have something there and just a deductible.
So let me talk a little bit about this. We just did an extensive review, Nancy and Michelle of my office. We traditionally haven't had flood insurance on any town properties because if you don't have a mortgage, you don't have to have flood insurance. In view of the new FEMA maps, though, some of the areas are going to be more impacted by the new firm maps. So we looked at all our properties and determined which ones we wanted to put some coverage on and others where we didn't feel that we needed the risk assessment there wasn't warranted. So the two, and as you can see, the premiums are pretty hefty. But also, we didn't want to negate the fact that if we have a severe loss, we're going to get a FEMA reimbursement for that. And if you have insurance, that pays first.
Sure.
So we determined that the two buildings were obviously Pier 44 because we put a lot of money into it, and the library is there. And also, we've put a lot of improvements and repairs into the Sand Hills Pump Station. So those are the two that we're going to put coverage on. But these obviously weren't originally contemplated in the budget last January, so that's why the transfer is here at the special.
Okay, the next item is proposed funding from water retained earnings, and it would be for three different items. The Cohasset water connection, the items that you talked about during the water shortage report at the beginning of the meeting, there was a cost to put those things into place. This would help cover that of approximately $25,000. The cash match for the reservoir design grant, which is approximately $39,000, and then the remaining $175,000 is towards well 22, a potential satellite well, which would help. That particular well did have a collapse last year, so it is not producing as well as it could be, whereas a satellite well next to it would be able to capture the water better, and it would not have that type of problem with the fact that it's the narrowing of the actual column of the well because of the collapse.
Well, 22, where is that, Nancy?
I would have to defer to Kevin when he comes back to the meeting.
All right.
So is that pretty much a rebuild, like right by the well?
Yeah, it requires far less permitting, and it would be nearby.
I got you.
So the supplemental information that you had that said supplemental itemizes all the wells that we have right now. So what we did is we went through an analysis of all those wells, of which could get us the greater yield. I think you had at your last meeting, how the yield production has fallen off, and that's natural of the wells over time. And so the cover email from Sean indicates that they believe well 22 is the way to go, and this would allow us to refurbish that for that amount of money. This would be one of the items reviewed by the Capital Planning Committee tomorrow evening as well, but we've been talking about water resiliency. If the meeting's approved at this town meeting, we could do it and have it in place over the winter.
And the $25,000 is just for the connection to Cohasset.
That's what
Right.
we've already done. That was the connection and the metering. Actually, the meters run
It
us
is for the
about
meter?
10
Okay.
to 12,000.
So is the 185 for a new well? So this other one's collapsed and it's only producing 200,000 gallons a day in the collapsed state?
Correct, so it collapsed last year, it was rebuilt, but they had to put a column down through the well to reinforce the walls, which then narrowed the ability of what could be drawn from that well. So this would get you a whole new well, it would just be next to it. The next item, okay to move on? Okay.
Yep.
The next item would be a proposed...
Wait, one more. The $39,000 to expand the reservoir,
So that's...
that's the study?
Design
That's
and permitting.
we're at 30% design right now, that would bring us to 60% design. And that's our cash match equivalent of the actual design. We've applied for a grant, so the warrant article is contingent on the grant being received.
Okay.
Can I preface the next one? So the next two warrant items are for the board's discussion. Our free cash was recently certified at
3.2 million?
3.2 million. We discussed this a little bit informally at the retreat on Saturday. So, and as we explained, this is the first special town meeting we've had in, I think, 4 or 5 years where we haven't had to take money off the top of free cash and replenish it to stabilization right away for storm mitigation costs. So that's a plus. So Nancy and I discussed this and have recommended 2 possible allocations in terms of building up the town's reserve. We do know there was some concern by some board members of taking money out of stabilization to pay for capital items at the annual town meeting. This would replenish it back into stabilization, although, as I think I mentioned, we've got a good return into the stabilization from Article 6, which is the levy excess limit. Nancy, that was in the amount of...
It was a couple $100,000 last year. It will likely be at least that much this year.
Right.
Because of the additional state aid.
And then, similar along these same lines, we took money out of capital stabilization for some capital. We'd recommend that the amount go back in. So these are new to you because this is, sort of the process of reviewing the warrant and getting recommendations from the financial team. They're discretionary and part of the board, but essentially, we wouldn't be saving them, but putting in our savings accounts.
So the $2 amounts, so that you know what's behind them, for the $487,000, because we issued the bond in June for the building projects, this generated significant investment income from Pam's good investment strategy, and this is approximately how much more than it was over our forecast for investment earnings. We forecast somewhere in the area of $36,000 based on current rates. We cleared more than $500,000. So since this was generated from those bond proceeds, it makes sense that it would be potentially to put back in capital stabilization towards a future project.
But what project?
We borrowed for the library, for the middle school, and for public safety, yep. And we also borrowed for the water pipe projects and that, but the water enterprise got their portion of the interest as well.
So this is the premium on the bond?
No, this is the interest earned on the money that came in and is in the bank as we're slowly paying out bills.
Because remember, we have like $100 million
Right.
to pay the projects as they go.
And this is going to be a one-time revenue source. We'll have it this year, we'll have a little bit less next year, and then after that, all the bills will be paid because the buildings will be built.
So this is the $95 million that we have sitting in the bank that we haven't paid people on yet is accumulating interest.
Correct. And then the next item is, as Tricia alluded to with the storm costs, we did the $1.15 million transfer last year to reimburse the stabilization fund for storm costs during that previous winter. We are now beginning to see the FEMA reimbursements roll in. In fiscal 16, we received $285,000 in FEMA reimbursements, not only from Storm Juno, which was the 2015 winter, we also received them from Storm Nemo, which was the 2013 winter, I believe, and Hurricane Sandy, which was in 2012. So they're all beginning to roll in with the assistance of Senator Warren's office and the pressure that they've been applying, as well as from our own local delegation and all the work that's being done by everyone else here.
So that comes in as a general fund receipt, but since we fronted all the money for it, that's why we're recommending it come from free cash and go back into stabilization.
So we took it from stabilization to pay.
Yeah, and we have since replenished stabilization, but this is a one-time receipt, and we always have storms.
Wait a minute. So we've already replenished the $285,000 that we took
We already
out?
replenished the 1.1 million. This covers 3 different storms worth of reimbursements. That's how far they lag.
Yeah.
In their
So it would
reimbursements.
be over.
Did we pay that money?
It would be over and above.
Yes.
It would. So we've
Yeah.
paid back everything that we've
Yep.
borrowed out, and now this is extra money.
So you could just put it all in capital stabilization. You don't necessarily have to put it into stabilization.
How much did we take out of stabilization last year?
600,000.
When I didn't want to take it out?
600,000.
I'm for this one then.
So we're putting it back.
Question?
I'm having a great deal of trouble following this. I've got some hearing deficit, I would really like a copy of what you're reading from. I think that's reasonable. Can I get a copy of it?
Do we have a,
Traditionally, we don't provide copies of the board's packet, but since you have, need an accommodation, we can get you, since you need an
It is
accommodation,
an
we
open
can
meeting,
get you a
ma'am.
copy. Yeah,
But I can't hear what you're talking about. It's going
I have an extra
fast,
copy.
And I don't have a copy of what you're looking at.
Tricia, I have it on my laptop. I can.
I have an extra copy, just hold on. Just gotta
cool
find
enough? Want
it.
to turn that off?
Do-do.
Wait, are you cool enough, Lorraine? Can you turn that off? Would that help? I mean,
Maybe that noise, yeah, that might help too. What's that?
All right, so that's Article 1. Are we,
So I
any
think
other?
our discussion would be the 487, how do we want to handle that? That's kind of a, an arbitrary use of that, not arbitrary, but it's a...
It's a one-time revenue.
It's a logical use of it. I mean, we got money from interest that we're not going to get again. It's going towards capital plans. The only thing I would say is, if I had my druthers, if you could do it, I'd put it back to the project. And, if we could reverse time, reduce the override that we use to pay for it, but that's not doable.
Well, we still, and Nancy can answer this better, we still have a little delta that we have not levied that is likely we won't levy. We didn't borrow every bit of money. I think it's still, how much do we still have left to borrow?
We have a little on each project. Probably the easiest one to apply to would be the public safety complex,
Right.
because that has that separate vote for $751,000, which is part of the debt exclusion.
Right.
That would be the easiest one to pick off, so to speak, or to apply it to.
Say that again, 700?
So when we did the public safety building, there were
Right,
two
for the-
additional.
for the additional
Yeah,
piece,
one was
right.
under the levy, and then there was a separate $751,000 for the second Sally Port and the third bay. That was voted as a debt exclusion.
So
So
there's
what she's-
potential that we'd have to borrow that money to pay for that.
Well, yeah, but if we don't, what's going to happen is if we don't have to borrow, then what we projected would be the impact to the taxpayer will be somewhat less because we never levied that actual amount. So we haven't levied the whole project yet, because we're waiting till they close out. And like for the library, the foundation is still fundraising, so we didn't levy the entire library project. Voters approved it, but we haven't borrowed all the funds.
I'm inclined to allocate it for that, I mean, I know that putting in capital stabilization would be great in the event that we need it in the future, but I think, if we're able to reduce the amount to the taxpayer by $487,000 from the $750, I'm inclined to say, can we do that? Why don't we do it?
I like that idea too, but I would say if we put in the capital stabilization fund until the projects are completed for any unforeseen costs, we know we have that there, and maybe
Earmark
reserve
it.
it for that,
You can put
earmark
in
it
capital
for the three.
stabilization and see
That could
where
be done
we are.
later.
Yeah, just to make
Yeah.
sure we,
Yep.
Yeah,
But then you're gonna have to go back
with
to
the
town meeting to
caveat
move it
that
out,
We're not
though.
going to spend it until the projects are done and we see, I mean, we don't want to borrow any more money.
Right.
And
And
that-
we've been following
that will
that. That's
cost-
why we didn't levy the whole amount. I shouldn't say levy. We haven't borrowed the whole
Borrowed it,
amount.
yeah,
Once we
right.
borrow, it, we have to levy it, so,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
But the
So it
only
can
thing, once
stay.
it goes into capital stabilization, though, then you're going to have town meeting to pull it out. You have to
Yeah,
have
that's what
the...
we
It's okay.
traditionally
Have
do
to do
anyway.
anyway.
I mean, we're also
But if we weren't to
really-
do that now, in other words, then we would,
it's going to go somewhere.
it would still be, right now, where would it go then if we didn't put it in capital stabilization?
It'll remain in free cash.
Free cash, right?
Part of free cash.
And Sally,
Go to stabilization.
but we're going to know within this fiscal year.
It wouldn't go to stabilization
It's probably going
with
to
a
be
vote.
complete, right?
No, we
The
won't know
building.
this,
Where does
well,
free
no,
cash
we won't know
flush
this
to?
It'll
fiscal
just
year.
close out again into the next year's free cash.
We'll know June 30th, John. We won't know January 4th when the FY18 budget's recommended to you. That's the problem.
Right.
But we're also looking at some other capital items, like the turf field is a big ticket number and stuff like that. But it's a good discussion we can have. If we put it in now, then you'll be discussing again in 5 months, and we'll have a better handle on the projects.
I'm fine putting in capital stabilization. I'm just saying that if we go to town meeting, then you're going to have, you never know what happens at town meeting. But if we're going to commit to trying to reduce the tax burden by not levying and borrowing, rather, and then levying, then we could do that. But if everybody wants to put in the capital stabilization, I'm fine with it.
It makes sense. I mean, I will go back to the time when we tried to give tax money back to the voters, and the presenter got kind of chastised up there for that. And, it depends, what is this going to add up to?
Right.
But I agree with John. I think it should go there, and so we don't have to borrow any more money.
It was Tony.
Again, we're just trying to capture the one-time savings for the projects.
Okay.
All right.
So that's Article
Article
1. Article 2 is what the purpose of the meeting being called is the adoption of the FEMA flood maps. Duxbury passed their maps last night and our informational session. Both Duxbury and Marshfield have their FEMA flood maps as part of their zoning. I think there's a very, very strong argument that the town should consider that for our town as well. Presently, right now, the FEMA maps are part of the Conservation Commission rules and regulations. And 4 years ago, Neil came to me and said he really thought that this needed wider education and wider knowledge by the town and more force, and to have it adopted at town meeting. So that is why we adopted at town meeting. Also, so the town and town meeting members know the importance of the commitment the town makes to a number of programs that make us eligible for FEMA money. That's helped us tremendously in doing some of our infrastructure repair. And the most important thing, which I think the Coastal Coalition has done a good job along with Nancy Durfee, is that failure to adopt the maps means the town can't participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, and that if we do get a storm and it's a declared federal emergency disaster area, we would not be eligible for those funds. So,
And we also lose the CRS reduction too, don't we?
the CRS reduction of 15% will help people, even though, with the adoption of these maps, the flood insurance is going to go up for some folks. Some folks that were never paying flood insurance are now going to be required. But I'm happy to say, as the result of our appeals and our work fighting FEMA on that, the impact is much, much less than we originally anticipated.
Who's presenting this article? Is it going to be Conservation, since they own?
No, it's the
or-
board. The board will be presenting. So Leslie Fields from Woods Hole Group is at the meeting tonight, explaining what's going to happen as far as the LOMARs and individual letters of map amendment, and what the town is going to be doing. Because if you remember, we still believe there's some errors in the maps, but FEMA wouldn't change them before they required us to adopt them no later than November 4th. So what Woods Hole is doing on behalf of all three towns is they've prepared letters of map revision that will be filed shortly after the town meetings with FEMA. And they've been in consultation with FEMA. FEMA's expecting them. So we have to have those corrections that we identified in the maps after they were revised the second time ready.
Okay. Article 3.
The foyer at the high school.
Superintendent McCarthy's here to address both Article 3 and 4. And I believe there's information in your packet about that.
So the FOIA issue we talked about last year, and that relates to the sidewalk that was outside of the gymnasium foyer, was pitched back towards the foyer, and what was happening is every time it rained or snow got piled up there, basically it leaked into the foyer. It came in underneath the tile floor. That's all cracked now and ruined. You've got the storefront is all rotted. If you look at the sill on the storefront, it's all rotted out and basically has to be replaced. So you have to replace that entire window wall there that faces the parking lot. So this project basically will look at renovation of that space, not necessarily changing around dramatically, renovating by having a new storefront, new glass storefront, have a new floor. At the same time, we would upgrade the restrooms. The restrooms are basically dated. This is a very public area. A lot of, obviously, people from outside Scituate come into that foyer, and it reflects negatively on the town right now and the condition that is in. And so with the entire area being redone, now the sidewalk has been fixed, and now pitches properly, you will have that entire, the pavement of the parking lot, you've got the new auditorium, and so, this piece will complete that entire side, and I think really make it an attractive public entrance to Scituate. So that's the FOIA project. It's approximately $150,000. We had Daedalus and Doran Whittier both take a look at this, and that's how we arrived at that estimate of approximately $150,000 to do this work. Any questions on that one?
One question, is it, that area typically is freezing in the winter?
Yep.
So people selling candy bars out there are wearing...
It's freezing, you're right.
Is there like an insulation
Yeah,
component of that as well?
yeah. There would definitely be, and that, the R value of the new window wall would be tremendously different than what you currently have there. That's dated, and that doesn't have a whole lot of insulation in terms of that. You know, you get a much thicker window wall that would go in there, which would provide a lot more insulation.
And then the only other issue with the gym, I don't know if it doesn't sound like it's going to be this, is the roof. The roof leaked.
Roof leaked, yep, and ruined part of the floor. And so, you know, again, we're patching, at this point, roofs. You know, at some point, it's going to have to be replaced, but right now, it could be patched. We had somebody take a look at it, and they patched it. Also, that's going to have to happen down the road in the not-too-distant future is the replacement of those wood floors. I mean, they've been basically sanded and polyed so many times that we're probably going to have to replace them at some point. So anyways, there's, you know, this is just the ongoing maintenance of aging buildings, and that's just natural.
Good.
And that's that. And then the...
Article 4?
Yep, and the Article 4 has to do with the well. And one of the challenges that we're running into, obviously, with our fields is we have irrigation that's on town water. And for several years now, we have not been able to irrigate those fields. So our athletic fields are constantly being used, and we can't put water on them, and therefore they're in really rough condition, almost getting to the point of being unsafe conditions. With putting the new field in at Cushing and renovating that Cushing field, we put an irrigation system in, not realizing at the time that we couldn't connect that irrigation system to town water. And so we talked about what would be a couple of options that we could potentially do to water that field. One was a cistern system, which we'd work with basically rainwater that would come off the roof that we would collect, put in a tank, pump it out, and go through the irrigation system. The other would be the potential of a well. The well is much more reliable than the cistern system. You still need rainwater to make that system work. So let's say, for example, this year, your field is still going to die because you don't have rainwater. So we've invested over $200,000 in this field with CPC funds. It's probably the only grass growing right now in Scituate. If you go up behind Cushing, you're going to see a beautiful green field that's just starting to grow because we're trucking in water. That's how we're doing it. And so we had a company look at this possibility of a well. They determined that the best solution for us would be to drill a well near the high school turf field that would service both the Cushing field and the high school field. So basically what you're doing is you're taking the high school field off your town water supply, and you'd be relying strictly on a well. Now, this would be an extremely deep well, because obviously you've got to get a lot of pressure and a lot of water up to be able to water that entire complex. And so we've had it priced, and the cost of that is with a contingency with all the design fees of about $150,000 as well for that well. You know, the benefit to the town is it's twofold. Number one, you're going to have much better athletic playing fields, and we don't have enough of those in town, and we've got to take care of the ones we have. The only way you can take care of the ones you have is you have to put water on them somehow. If you can't rely on the town water, then you're kind of sunk. The other advantage here is it takes a large user, that water that we put on those fields, which is a lot of water, it takes it off the town water supply. So there's a benefit there too.
Does that 150 include the sprinkler systems?
The systems are already in place.
Will it yield enough water, John?
Yes, according to them, it'll yield enough water. There is a contingency in there in case they had to go deeper, but they feel that, based on what they were talking about, that this would yield plenty of water to water those fields. And
I'm sure the quality's fine for irrigation.
Yep.
Is it back by the baseball field?
It is actually closer to the football field. So it's outside the fence, but it's along the side. of the fence. And they targeted, and I don't know the equipment they used to basically, find the water.
Well, that was going to
but,
be my next question.
Yeah, so they basically showed us a map of where the best locations would be for water. And there were several of them around the field, going from outside the fence, it's all outside the fence, but up towards Cushing. That general vicinity is the best area to drill a well.
So this is for the well and all the pipe to go
Everything.
connect up into the
Yep.
irrigation? Okay.
Design, the whole thing, and it would connect, and also from a couple of auxiliary storage tanks so that we could also collect rainwater to supplement.
Okay, that's good.
So how does it get connected to the high school field's water system, John? I know you get the irrigation up in Cushing, so the well is going to be connected to that. How do we connect it to
So
that?
we basically would take the high school irrigation system, which exists on the baseball field, both baseball fields, as well as the one next to it. So you've got that whole area is irrigated, and all we would have to do is connect. We'd have to have a pump that would be installed, and instead of the irrigation system coming out of that small little, room behind the cafeteria now, we basically would come out near wherever the well is going to be located. But we'd have to also install a pump to connect to the
system that's in place.
system. Yep.
So that area that you're talking about is an area that people are talking about putting fields in as well?
Yep.
So I assume it's going to be situated so that it's not going to...
Correct. I mean, exactly. And again, the fields, the irrigation's already there for so we already have an irrigation system. Where the well is going to be is far away from the fields. It's closer to the turf field is where it is. It's on that side.
But out of the way of any potential new fields as well.
Yes, correct. It won't conflict with any potential new fields that are added.
I think we need it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two concerns are, one, even though we say we're not using Scituate water, we're drilling a hole right into our aquifer and taking...
You're going very deep, though, so it's not, again, you're going down into a pretty deep aquifer, so it's going to be pretty deep well.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's different...
Yeah, I know, and water is water, but,
And then the price of the well, I mean, you can get a well drilled at your house, which probably doesn't go that deep. For $6,000-$7,000.
Right.
And all of a sudden, this is $150,000.
Yep, that was my first question, too, because, having drilled wells before, I thought, wow, it'd probably be around $20,000, $25,000. And then we got the estimate, and it was closer to $150,000. But it's the depth of this well. It's extremely deep. And the amount of water you have to get out of the ground to water those fields and the pressure that you need requires a well of this. Oh, it's hundreds of feet. I forget the actual depth, but it's pretty far down there.
You know anything about that?
No.
Oil, not water.
This is, water is the new oil. I don't know if you figured that out. After we're paying to ship water in here, water has become the new oil. I think oil's cheaper right now.
Get one of those tankers.
Probably is.
But, it's interesting because I walk every day in Duxbury and I see these beautiful green fields and, they're watering with their well water. And, you have to, it's the only way you're going to keep these fields up.
The fields are terrible.
Yeah, they're
Yes.
The fields are dangerous, terrible.
That's why I just said
And I agree with you that we need it. I mean, the whole concern of mine is we're telling the private citizens not to use their wells, and here we are digging a well. And if we had some water people here, they may say, you're going deep enough that you're not really, I don't know.
Right. And we perhaps, maybe for town meeting, we have somebody there who can address that, the depth of this well versus, and how much would that drain from the...
That would be
a good idea.
Of course, the one thing you'd look at is that, the well's going to be, when it's, who controls it then, John? Is this school department, water department?
Yeah. I would assume, the land is owned, technically controlled by the town. It's technically, the town here takes...
No, the reason why I'm asking is this, John, because if it comes into a situation like we have a drought, and we, as the water commissioners say, what we're going to do, then I'm assuming then it impacts whatever it would apply to the well over there.
Impose that on us.
Which goes to everybody's concern here. I mean, in the future, if we're not in a drought situation, the water's prevalent, then, having an on-site well is great for the system or for the fields. But if in the event that it's another situation next year, like this year, we can shut it off and say, you can't draw on it.
Yep.
And the other issue, which I think is helpful, is you need more fields at the high school.
Yep.
And if you're going to spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on fields, you got to have a way to
Water
keep them.
source.
That's correct.
Keep them up.
You know,
So-
that Cushing field will be a beautiful field if we can keep water on it. I mean, it really came out nice.
And if you use that land that goes right back behind where you're thinking that well, that'd be a perfect place to.
Exactly. You could connect right to that very easily.
Makes sense to me.
Anything else?
Okay.
Good.
Thanks, John.
Thank
All
you,
right, great.
John.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
John, thank you.
Article 5.
Article 5 is a grant cash match for repair and replacement of the pilings in Scituate Harbor for $90,600. You have some information in your packet. So this is a cash match share of a grant that the town has applied for, and it will be contingent again on receiving that grant, although we are doing this at the request of the Seaport Economic Advisory Council.
So it's good?
So I think that's a good sign that they will do it. And, hold on one sec.
What's the correct number, Nancy? Is it 90,400 or 500?
It's 90,000. Is it 400?
Yeah.
My
I
bad.
didn't,
You said 6, this says 5, that says 4.
so I missed the backup. I missed the backup.
Somewhere in that area.
So the information we have from the harbor master is 90,500.
So I missed the backup. What exactly are the pilings that they're looking to
This
deal with?
project will repair and replace the pilings in Scituate Harbor. It's been on the capital plan for a number of years, but lacked enough money to pull the trigger on it. We previously allocated some funds for this project at the 2013 town meeting, and the amount of $50,000, coupled with this $90,500 transfer from retained earnings and anticipated $560,000 grant from the Seaport Economic Development Council, will be able to do it. The total project cost is $701,000.
Good deal.
Yeah.
And again, as I said, it would be
So we-
contingent.
25% similar
It's our,
to-
yeah, same as 75-25.
So what is it, 96 or 94 or 95?
It's 95.
90,500?
Yeah.
Okay.
The total's 140,500, which 50,000 was already approved in April of 2013.
Yeah.
So are these all the pilings in the harbor? What are we talking about to a non-voter?
Marina.
That's what I was trying to
It's
find
at
out.
the marina, isn't it?
Islands.
Nancy, correct me
Are they
if
for the
I'm not
floats?
mistaken.
Yeah, I was
It's
just looking
to-
for, I have I thought I had it in my capital planning folder, but I think I definitely have the project in the book. And I can go grab it for you. But that's where I left. I went to
My
get
understanding is the
my
Cove
capital
Park
planning
Marina.
folder, but it's not in there.
It's to change, isn't it to change from anchors and chains to pilings?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happens is the floats will move. Keith knows all about this sort of stuff, and if I misspeak, tell me. This way on pilings, like the private marinas, they go up and down. It's safer, really, for the boats?
So are we putting telephone poles?
Driving
in?
pilings in instead of having anchors, granite with chains.
So are there going to be poles everywhere there's a mooring now?
I don't know, I haven't seen the plan, but it stops them from at low tide, you have a 10-foot difference, stops the,
It's what the
floats
docks
from
are
moving.
attached to.
That's right.
Is it-
Over like the, over on the
No,
side
but
of the
docks and
marina.
moorings are different.
Right, it's the docks, right?
Yeah, not the
It's the
moorings.
pilings for all the,
Keith, you have any idea what this is?
Yeah, keep wall 250 way. Like Sean was saying, it's pilings. So right now, there's a whole bunch of mooring stones out there with chains on them that go up to the
I kept
floats.
those
And as Sean was saying, when we get the low tide, there's an extra 10 or 12 feet of chain, so they move 10 or 12 feet wherever they want.
the floats are moving.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
Just
they have
wanted to
that
make sure.
extra
They're
chain.
confusing moorings.
So when you put the pilings in place, it holds them exactly where they are. And it won't be one piling per mooring chain, because there's gotta be 40 or 50 of them out there. So it'll be less than that, but there will be pilings sticking up out there. But it's way safer, it's much better. You already have the proper way.
Great. Well, 75% payment from the
Yep.
state is,
We've been lucky with Seaport.
They've been very generous to us. So, cross our fingers.
All right. So then the next one is what? The purchase of property at 0 Edward Foster Road.
Yeah, Article 6.
Right, this is for beach access to 0 Edward Foster Road. And the purchase price agreed upon by the owner with negotiation with the board is $7,500. Any sale of town land requires town meeting approval.
So across from Maritime Center in that lot, we're gonna have a strip of land that we can get back and repair that seawall. And can we use the beach? Would it be public access to the beach?
Yes, but the
It's not-
beach is not publicly owned,
Right.
Right,
so it's
Yeah.
really just that strip.
right, it's only,
So
it's
for
not very
equipment,
wide.
for-
And under general laws for traveling and trawling.
What's
you
the
know,
width?
As
Is it
long as
like
continuous movement.
20 feet or something? Something like that, right?
Here,
40?
Is it 40?
hold on,
I thought it was just barely wide enough for equipment.
2,000 square feet,
You can walk
but it's
in the water.
a narrow strip. You have the assessor's part and parcel in the map in your
in the water.
packet there.
Kind of like this, but it's like right there.
All right.
Article 7 is the subject of a later agenda item. I don't know if you want me to go in too much detail. The MBTA's approached the town to sell a small portion of land that is proximate, actually adjacent to the Greenbush MBTA parking lot. MBTA has gone out to bid, has awarded a bid, and again, if the board is agreeable to the sale price that is yet to be negotiated, town meeting approval would be required for this as well.
And this article just authorizes us with the ability to do.
Yes, so the warrant article, the way it's written, is how it will appear in your final warrant. And that was provided by town council, who will also review that. So you can contemplate, you know, whatever it needs to on the floor. And the last article is we received one item by petition. That's Article 8. Petition articles go last, according to the town charter, and that would take the remaining acreage held by the school committee. There was 20 acres, and then some that the school committee voted as surplus to turn over to the town to build the public safety complex. That relieves the remaining 14 acres. This petition article would take that land under the care and control of the school committee right now and ask town meeting to put it back into conservation. That would be a non-binding vote of town meeting.
But can it only go back into conservation if the school committee votes that it's no longer needed for school purposes? Is that one of the?
There's a two-part test, and the first test is first, that the school would vote it as surplus, or it would vote to surplus, meaning they have no future use, and then town meeting would have to approve it. This also would require it, I believe, is it due to put a CR on it as well? Permanent conservation restriction.
So if this passes, it's not binding.
That is correct. Until the school votes that it's surplus.
That does, right.
So it's like an override, one could happen and then the other, so they're not mutually exclusive. So you can have a town meeting and then an override, or you can have an override and then a town meeting. So you could pass this, and then the school could subsequently vote to make it surplus. But
When? I'm sorry, but what, next year, next meeting?
At
Probably
any
whenever.
time.
Anytime.
Anytime. The school did discuss this previously, a few weeks ago at a meeting, and indicated that it was not amenable to declaring this surplus and going into conservation.
And this has nothing to do with the other 40 acres of land that is conservation right in the Ellis Estate.
That is correct.
This is just the remaining 20 that was given to the school back in
Right.
the 70s.
74, I believe.
Right.
And that is it. So,
Okay.
8 articles, which is good. That's pretty good. No unpaid bills this year.
So what do we do on Article 8? We have to give an opinion at the next meeting, and someone will speak to that opinion, even though it's a sponsored.
Well, at your next meeting, you should have the petitioner in, because at your next meeting, you vote to place all the articles on the warrant and execute the warrant at your next meeting. And then, as you always do, you vote whether you support all the articles, as the advisory committee will do. And then the petitioner will move the article and get to speak to it, and then I presume the moderator will then ask the board in capital planning what their recommendation is. Well, in this case, it would likely be conservation as well. I mean, advisory already gives their recommendation, but
And
since
school
this
committee, I
is...
would
Oh,
mention.
school committee, I would
School
assume.
committee, I think, would too.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it'd be recognized to who would speak to it, and it would be all those entities likely. But the petition moves the article and gets to speak to it first.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And that's the warrant, so it will be, and your next meeting, Lorraine will have on the agenda to vote all the articles, whether to support, and assign at that meeting. And we'll have, Lorraine, you'll have the petitioners in. I think that was the only non-department one, so that would be the only person we need to schedule an appointment for, to come in
Who's
for
the
that
petitioner?
meeting. Patrice Lambert is the lead petitioner. Many signatures on the petition, but she's listed as the lead.
Okay. Next, we're moving on to a discussion and vote of some DPW items. First, we have the sewer rates, Nancy Holt and Kevin Cafferty.
Good evening.
Good evening again.
I do apologize for the lateness of your sewer rate package. As you can tell by the size, it took a little doing to put it together. We first brought this before the board 2 meetings ago. The board tasked us with getting some additional information, and that's what we have for you today. In the packet that you have, if you could first cast your attention to the large 11 by 17 sheets, that's the item that the board specifically asked for. It will provide you with 5 years of history and then 5 years going forward. So you have actual data from fiscal 12 to fiscal 16 on the large sheets. And then you have the fiscal 2017 budget and the forecast for fiscal 18 through 21. Correct. The forecast keeps things fairly static, except for salaries. There's a 2% increase in electricity in the outer years. Repairs and maintenance and equipment and parts are held steady at 75 through the entire forecast, which is where they're at for fiscal 17, based on the current level of non-capital repairs that are going on within the system. That seemed a reasonable assumption that Kevin and I came to. And also the indirect costs are at a 2% increase annually. The only thing that you might see be reduced would be the telephone cost of $4,300. If the voice over internet protocol system is extended to the sewer system, that would positively impact their telephone bill. But other than that, the other change would be on the third page where you could see the long-term debt. This long-term debt number includes everything that is currently issued and also the impact of everything that's been approved but not yet issued, which would include Chain Pond Pump Station, $400,000, I think, in engineering for future expansion, and then the copper study, and there's one other item, but they're all included in there. What it does not factor in is what the copper limit reductions would be that are going to come forward on the fiscal 18 capital plan once this feasibility study is done that we're currently working on. Those potential projects or project that come forward in order for the town to keep its NEPDES permit could be in excess of $1 million. We just don't know what those measures are going to be. So it's something that is not factored into this because we don't have a good number on it to go forward. So what it tells you at the bottom of the third page of the large sheets is that basically, without the prepaid betterments, the operating budget has not been supported by its own revenue stream. With the prepaid budgets, we've been okay for the last few years. Fiscal 17, we had to dip into retained earnings to balance the operating budget by almost $500,000, due to the fact that we were putting in additional funds to repair and maintenance, as well as to equipment parts over the last couple of years, and because of the electricity costs. We cannot rely on the prepaid betterments. So if I can just draw your attention in your packet to the next item, which would be the study of the betterments themselves. It's a landscape piece of paper that has multiple columns on it. I apologize for the size print. It's rather small. And that shows you, this is what it looks like. It's about 1.5 pages. It shows every single current project for which betterments are being assessed. It gives you the number of betterments, and it gives you the total that is due each year for the following years for principal and interest. And then at the end, in the second to last column, it shows the debt service that's outstanding for these extensions, and then the variance. So how much do we have in debt service, more or less than what we have coming in as a revenue stream from the betterments? And as you can see, in most years, we have less revenue coming in from the betterments than we do debt service to be paid, and that's because of prepaid betterments. And betterments are expected, in some cases, to be prepaid. If you sell your house, it's unlikely that someone's going to want to buy your house with a lien attached to it, which is what a betterment is. They're going to want that paid off at the time they buy the house. So you see prepayments for that reason. With all the refinancing that's been going on with the low interest rates, it's very common that a mortgage company will refuse to have a betterment remain on a property. They'll want it paid off because a town cannot legally subordinate their lien, so they would have a lien above the mortgage. It doesn't always happen, but it often happens. And that's part of the reason why we've seen so many prepaid betterments. So we just wanted to give you an idea of how many were actually out there. There's 737 still remaining, and they run all the way through 2033, with the last ones being added from Musquashkett. So moving on.
Nancy, can I just jump in for a couple of things?
Sure.
So that's pretty good for a town standpoint. So if the real estate business is busy, we get paid quicker. We don't get interest-free loans, but they just pay the betterments quicker, so we're not waiting as long.
Yeah, so we don't get the interest, the between 2% and 4%, depending on what they were voted when they were actually approved. On the remaining betterment, we get what the interest is from the last time it was paid to the date of payoff. So you lose that interest. You also lose that matching revenue for the debt service in the outer years.
Okay.
Now, what you'd want to see happen is, okay, you had prepaid betterments of $300,000, you captured it, we established the sewer capital stabilization fund in order to do that, you capture the revenue, you put it someplace so that you can then bring it back across.
As needed.
Yeah. The way the enterprise fund statute stands now in the regulations, they didn't allow you to set aside, say on your balance sheet or as a reserve fund, that kind of money. You had to adopt the stabilization fund, which is what we did. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to capture the revenue because we've had to put the revenue back into the system. It's been supporting the operational budget, and we've been injecting it at special town meetings for repairs that have been ongoing at the plant, all of which is necessary, all of which you've all toured for the most part, but it has had an impact. And we haven't done a rate increase on the regular rates since fiscal 14 when there was a 2% increase. So,
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
I was asking Tricia the other day, we did that $15 million upgrade about 20 years ago to Black.
2,000, yeah.
No, 96.
I have it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's,
1996. 15.1 million, I think it was 15.
yeah, it's
I remember it
a
was my
debt
first year.
exclusion and
Where do I see that drop off here?
So,
No.
that debt retires in FY '21. I had Nancy run this yesterday. For FY '17 and 18 and 19, FY '17, 18, it's about $660,000 a year, and then it drops off considerably in FY '19. And then as I said, FY '20 is 120, FY '21 is 98,000.
So it must have been like a 25-year,
probably a 20.
think. All right, okay.
Because I think it was issued around 2000.
Oh, all right, I think all right.
Yeah, and it may have been, more than likely because of the size of it, it was probably issued in parts. They probably didn't, I think most of it was done through the MWPAT, which is now the Clean Water Trust, because there were more advantageous rates, and then anything that they wouldn't allow as an eligible cost, we would have borrowed as a regular general obligation bond. So, based on what we're presenting to you, we came before you last time asking you for a rate increase. What we did was we had the Nora down in the water department, who runs the billing program for both the water and sewer, got a download from the system for me. I got all the fiscal 16 usage. I got every bill for the last 5 years. But I went and just looked at fiscal 16, and we recalculated every single person's bill in town based on fiscal 16 usage by 6 different variations of rate changes or rate structure changes. We did a 10% increase, which would generate, and this is on this thick packet with the sheet on top. This is the summary of it. A 10% rate increase would generate about $112,000. A 15% rate increase would generate about $168,000. A 25% reduction in the base rate allowed usage would generate about $103,000. So we want to talk about this a little bit. Right now, we were only one of the two towns that we looked at in our survey of different rates that still has allowed usage within the base rate. So on your water, you have a base rate, and then from the first 1,000 gallons, you start paying a rate for usage. In sewer, it's different. The first 12.500 cubic feet are included in base. You don't start paying the $4.70 per 100 cubic feet until after you get by that. So one of the things we looked at is, okay, what if we reduce that? So we have 3 different reductions of that. One is a 25% reduction, so that the first 12.500 cubic feet, which would be included in the base rate, would go down to 9.38 cubic feet, which would generate 103. The second was a 36% reduction, which would take it from 12.5 to 800 cubic feet, which would be 155,000 in additional revenue, and then a 50% reduction in the base rate from 12.5 to 6.25, which would generate about 228,000. A complete elimination of it would generate $500,000 and would solve the issue that we currently have with about a $500,000 revenue gap, but that is not a realistic request to come forward with, and it would be very painful for sewer users. So what we're proposing that the board consider would be a 50% reduction in the base rate. And what that would end up doing is approximately 201 users, or 7% of the users, would probably have no impact. As similar users to fiscal 16, their usage was below 6,250 cubic feet per quarter. So your small homes, single residents that have very little water usage, so they have very little sewer usage, would not have any impact at all on their tax bill. On their sewer bill. Approximately 33% would have less than the average change of $80, which would be the average change. That's about 931 users based on fiscal 16 usage, and then approximately 60%, or 1,700, based on fiscal 16 usage, would see over the average increase, which would be $80. Now, the cap on the increase would be $117.50, because it's 6,250 cubic feet times $4.70 the rate, times 4 quarters. That's the most it can go up, is $117.50. So no one would see an increase more than $117.50. Overall, it would probably be, on average, a 20% increase. Your average bill was currently, based on fiscal 16, $394. Your average would go up to $474. And this would, as we said, approximately generate $228,000. With the water conservation that's going into effect, you might see some of that. And also, in the motion that we provided to you, we asked that you make these rates effective July 1, beginning of fiscal 17. Whatever the board decides, we would ask that you make that effective October 1, because we've already issued 2 bills already for quarter 1 for period, for Area A and Area B. So we wouldn't want to penalize Area C for quarter 1 and just make it effective for the remaining 3 quarters. So that would further reduce the impact by about 25% based on fiscal 16 usage for most people, and the seasonal residents probably not as much. So I'm throwing a lot of information at you, and I apologize for doing it in such a manner. The one last thing we do want to look at with you, 2 things. On this, you have one sheet that's got the current survey of rates, and Kevin and I were talking about this and going back and forth, and we're trying to wrap our head around the fact that our average rate, when you do the math, is $394, but the average rate when you do it this way is $563. What it is this is a survey of rates. It's not a survey of average bills. It looks at a set amount of consumption based on different rate structures and what a bill would be. So based on this amount of consumption, which is actually higher than what we normally have in Scituate, our bill would be 9 out of 11 of the communities surveyed. If you were to go with the recommendation of Kevin and I for a 50% reduction, we would rise to 8 out of 11, based on that rate structure with that type of consumption. That would not be our average bill, but that would be what the bill would be for that type of consumption, so you can compare it within these other communities.
So Nancy, just a question. So the 563 to the 394, basically doing averages, the 563 doesn't include any reductions. Is that the difference?
The 563 is only if you look at 12,000 cubic feet of annual consumption,
Flat.
just so you can compare yourself to other communities' rate structures, because everyone's got a little different rate structure. As we said, we were only one of 2 communities that we found in this group of 11 that actually have, actually have a base with some usage attached to it. Others, it's, here's your base rate, and your usage starts from the get-go. And that was one of the things that, when we were getting ready to come back before you for the last meeting, we looked at this and we're like, I really want to go back and actually run the math on these bills and see what would happen if we changed structure.
Right.
So by doing this, we would impact the bills for most people, but you would not raise the rates. You'd change the amount of the base rate allowable usage. So it would change when the rate per 100 cubic feet actually kicks in. If you were to just put a rate increase on, well, if you just put a rate increase on, you're going to hit everybody.
This is going to hit most people, too.
Yeah, well, it is going to hit most people. You're going to hit 93%.
201 people will not be affected.
Probably not, based on fiscal 16, yeah.
So the average is going to go from $394 annually to $474 annually.
Correct.
Okay.
If we choose that.
If you choose that. You have 6 options ahead of you, and you have a 7th option of not doing anything.
Have you looked at cutting costs?
We have looked at cutting costs. If you look at the items that are put before you, we can't cut electricity, or mandated to pay that if we want to run the plant. The other big-ticket items would be repair and maintenance for $75,000 and equipment and parts for $75,000. We could certainly cut back on them, but that's what got us in this predicament in the first place. I'm not saying they need to stay that high in the far outer years, but for now, it seems a reasonable assumption based on what we're spending. The chemical and lab supplies, unfortunately, you will be voting a chemical contract later on in this meeting, which has got an average usage of $96,000, and that's one chemical. There's not a whole lot we can do. We do participate in the Eastern Cooperative, so we're trying to find the most economical way to provide chemicals. Other than that, there isn't a whole lot of items that you can cut further. I mean, right now, just for those at home, we've got vehicle service at $850. You have a few vehicles out there. Your training is at $1,750. Technical services is at $25,000 for any studies or consultants they have to bring in. We're certainly open to any recommendations the board has for further cost cutting.
I should know the answer to this.
Rentals and equipment.
About $160,000, $170,000. What is, I should
From
know.
150 to 170?
Right, just below vehicle service, on the second page, Kevin, on the station.
I'm looking at it now, and I'm just trying to remember.
Tony, you and I, the experts down there, what was?
I'm trying to think if it's for the rental, part of the rental of the containers that haul off the material down the Bourne.
Could
But
be.
I'd have to double
solid,
check for sure.
right.
All
I think
solid
it-
waste that we load up.
I think it's sludge cake.
The sludge
Same
cake that
thing.
goes down.
I think that's what I was talking about.
That runs between $10,000 to $12,000 a month,
Okay.
depending on how much
That would
That's a
location.
byproduct of what we create that gets hauled down the Bourne.
After we bake it and everything else, right?
That's enough, that's good, yeah.
So Nancy, when you go back and look at the fact that you're projecting that we will lose $400,000 a month, and the prepaid betterments without the prepaid betterments. So you're saying that there's this kind of deception of what's going on, because we've been taking a cash, instead of a pool aspect to our accounting on here, and putting the prepaids in that revenue,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
So when you take it out, is the amount that you're taking out just the difference between what should have been in there anyways?
No, I'm taking it out completely because we shouldn't be using it at all as a revenue source, because we should be
What about
capturing
year one?
it.
What about when somebody makes that payment for 3 years, but you're supposed to count 1 year of it? Is that in there?
This is only for the apportionment. We're looking at what we're going to get based on that schedule. So on the revenues, when you see sewer betterments, the sewer assessments added to tax, that's based on this schedule for what's still remaining out there.
No, my question is, when you're taking a number out, the only part you're taking out, when you make a prepayment, you're paying for the current year also.
It depends on when you make the prepayment. If you make it after before the annual tax bill, you're paying for that year plus everything else. If you make it after the annual tax bill or somewhere in between, you're only paying for a fraction.
Right, but somebody's done the math to say we're only taking out the future year payment, not the payment for the period that it's supposed to.
Right, so the ones that you have recorded on here are the ones we've actually received. So when you look at I'm just trying to, is it on the fiscal 18 forecast, a negative 487.24?
I'm looking at the ones where we actually made money, where we're reporting that we made money.
Right, so those are all the years that we made money. For this particular forecast, I stopped counting it as a revenue source because we should be capturing it, not using it towards our operational budget. So it's not that I don't assume that we will get any, I'm forecasting that we shouldn't be using it towards our operational budget.
I completely agree. My question is, see, I just want to make sure that we're not raising the rates to meet a number that's not accurate. So we're losing $200,000 a year over the last 6 or 7 years, and now we're projecting we're going to lose $500,000 or $600,000 over the next 6 or 7 years, which is what you're asking us to base our increase on.
I get you.
And I just want to make sure that the thought process is right, that we're actually counting, we're not pulling out more to subtract than we should be to show, when you say we lost, look, in 2015, when you say we lost $402,000, but we actually showed a $30,000 positive number, that you didn't take out too much to show that it would have been.
I get you.
So I want to make sure the prepayments, we're only taking out future, some of the paid future periods, not the period that they were actually in.
Okay, so I agree with what you said, to account for the period they were in, that would appear for any given year where there were prepayments, it would appear in the sewer assessments added to taxes current year. So it was already taken out up there on an earlier line. So for fiscal 15, the one you're looking at, on the first page, the sewer assessments paid in advance is $433,115. On the third page, you see that without those betterments having been paid in advance, we would have not had enough revenue by about $402,000. With them, you have a $30,000.
Just one, you're talking too fast. We
I am so
can't
sorry.
follow.
Yep,
where
okay.
you're-
So look, on the front page, the
Yep.
fiscal 15, we have the very last item for revenue, which is the sewer assessments paid in advance, is $433,115.
400 on the first page.
Yep, first page.
Okay?
So that was the amount of revenue that we took in from prepaid betterments after that year had been set aside and added to taxes. On the third page, same year, fiscal 15, the second to last line, the surplus deficit with prepaid betterments, looks at if you didn't count that $433,000, what was your revenue to expense? Our revenue to expense was, we had $402,348 more in expense than we did in a revenue stream. If we do count the $433,115, which we did in the year, we actually were $30,000 more in revenue.
Nope, I
than
understand it.
expense.
And my question is that 433 just capturing future months' prepayment and not the current year's payment?
It is capturing just the future years.
I thought you said DORs wouldn't allow us to do that.
No, we captured it and took it that year. We weren't able to set it aside. So we didn't
Right.
take it in and then set it aside somewhere else. We took it in and used it as revenue to support our operating budget. Otherwise, we would have had a revenue deficit.
Right, but so if someone pays their $20,000 for the next 20 years, you can't take $1,000 and put it in 20 different accounts for year 1 through 20?
No. We weren't allowed to before. Now that we've accepted the sewer stabilization fund, we can do so with a town meeting vote, and we did do that when we established it. We captured $250,000 and put it in the sewer capital stabilization fund so that we would have those funds for the future. But we've taken in a far greater amount. And to Tony's point, the concern I have is that in fiscal 14, which was, I think the Musquashkett Pond came on in 13, we collected $800,000 in prepaid betterments. The following year, we collected only half of that, 433. The year after that, it fell
Drop off
another
even more.
50% to 252. Some of that's because a lot of the refinancing that was going to go on has happened, but your number of betterments has fallen. So you think that you would continue to have that revenue source coming in, even though we say we don't want to count it, but we have been counting it. It's not realistic that it's actually going to continue to go in, because what it's showing us is that it's falling off. If another extension were to happen, you would probably see it rise again, because there would be more betterments and you would have people prepaying them.
And once they're paid, they're paid. You don't get paid twice.
Do you have anything in here for increased use? Like adding people to the sewer system?
No, because what we found is if you look at the actual sewer user charges, they're fairly flat. There is some increase where you see, so in fiscal '12, there was the extension of Rose's Lane up in that area. You can see that there was an increase in sewer user charges from 12 to 13, accounting for the new people coming on. You continue to see it, but it's really not
17,000.
rising. You're not, it's not coming up as much as you would expect.
Right.
Because there's no change in rate.
No, but there's 20,000 per household.
But our usage is less than what
14.
some other towns are doing. Plus, not every single person, you may have extended the line to 600 people and assess, and I'm using round numbers, and assess 600 betterments, but not every person on that line hooked up. Some of them may have decided to wait because they had a Title V system that was still good, or they had recently replaced it, so they haven't tied in yet. They're paying the betterment because their property has been bettered by this project. The actual numbers of those, I don't have. I can certainly find out for you. I'm sure Al would have had them from when that project was
But
rolled
my
out.
question is, if we get more users, like we expand to a new area, and we get more people at the sewer, then that number's going to go up. Do you have any of that in your projections?
No, because we do not have any extensions in the next 4 to 5 years, because we still have to deal with the I&I issue we have in order to get our yield down so that we can move forward with extensions. It's on our capital plan. It's certainly something we want to look at, but realistically, that was one of the issues with the 40R project. We couldn't sign off to say we had capacity.
So it was always my understanding that there is capacity.
There is the potential for capacity, but we also have to deal with our I&I issue.
I&I or the copper?
Go ahead.
I'll step in. We do have capacity. Our capacity, the way our permit is written, is we're held at 80%. Once we hit that 80% threshold, the 20% is for the 3 remaining phases that we have in the system to get that going.
But the reason we haven't expanded is because what we have on development right now with Clap Road, MBTA, 40Bs that were dormant and have come on, they've cut into that, weren't accounted for in the full build-out phases of the sewer master plan.
So to Tony's point, are those future connections reflected in the sewer usage charges out in 17, 18, 19, and 20? That's sort of where you're going, right, Tony?
No, they are not.
They're not, because none of them have pulled a permit yet. And there's a $14,000 sewer connection fee for each residential dwelling.
But
But
that's not, that's,
those ones who are like the 40B and the proposed intended development, if they haven't pulled a permit, and then
Well, I'm
somebody
talking-
else pulls it ahead of them, we phase in the next 2 or 3 phases, if that's what we're going to do, then they're going to be out of luck because there's no more capacity at that point.
Well, that's not really true, because you have Weldon Woods and Stockbridge. If Herringbrook should suddenly be built, those permits are considered good the day they first were denied. So
Herringbrook doesn't get sewer.
Walden Woods is tied in, they're living
Weldon
there.
Woods and Stockbridge we've done now. So Herringbrook isn't tied in, there's no sewer?
It's a septic.
There's no sewer
That's
down
down
there.
3A.
The reason I say with
So
Stockbridge,
Toll Brothers,
Stockbridge has been going on for 15 years, and they keep going and going and going if it doesn't get built. That's why I'm saying, you know, I know that we're worried that they're going to get built, or they might get built, or they'll apply to tap into the sewer, but I'm like, I don't think you can keep holding out thinking they're going to, because they haven't yet.
well, Stockbridge Woods, though, I'm
Yeah.
referring to.
That's
They're
what I'm talking
building
about.
now.
No, that's
Are we talking-
Walden Woods. Walden Woods is what they just are completing off of Hazel.
So
But Stockbridge Road, it used to be called Scituate Woods, and it's like a 60-unit
Greenfield and
apartment
Stockbridge.
right at the top of it. And that one, they've cleared, and they haven't done anything. They've just
set it idle. And it's been that way for the past 10-plus years. They keep coming back asking to revive their permit, their comprehensive permit, but they haven't done anything. That's why I'm saying, you know,
Did any of those people pay their $14,000?
Yeah, they
All
would have
these
been.
people that we're saying that we're holding this capacity for?
I don't think so.
We've been getting, I don't know if it's for these particular projects that you're speaking to, but we've been getting prepayments of $14,000 one at a
Well,
time.
the $14,000 is not the betterment.
Right.
The $14,000 is the hookup
Connection,
fee.
yeah.
It's the hookup.
So have you gotten a hookup fee for anyone that we're holding capacity for?
I know I've seen some, I don't know if they're for the people that are holding capacity, so I can't answer you yes or no.
So
So,
I think to John's point, and, you know, I think what we need to do is, the way to make more revenue is to get the sewer up to capacity and get more people on it, and not just hold spots for people that aren't doing anything. And that, I think that's gonna be part of the plan that's gonna show revenue going up, that's gonna help cut into this deficit some.
Okay. I definitely, we can incorporate that. Based on what happened with Musquashkett, there was no great raise in revenue between fiscal 14 and fiscal 16.
Well, just the 14 grand times 10 is $140,000. You let 10 people have sewer, and you just took care of a 30-year deficit.
For 1 year.
Right, and then you let 10 people get on the next year. You know, I think that's got to be part of our plan.
Kevin, the Musquashkett area had to involve 100 homes or more? I really, I don't know.
473.
I thought it was 472. But anyway, times 15 or $20,000, that was good, Tricia.
No, I mean, because, you
No,
know,
but to,
people can
just
pay
the
their
90,
betterment,
just-
or they can finance it.
right, and I think to Nancy's point, a lot of those people in mine, it wrote out a check, sold their house or whatever, it was paid pretty quick, was what Nancy was saying. So I think Tony's saying, where is it here on the paper? Musquashkett was just a year or two ago, so it,
Well, look at Toll Brothers, there's 90 houses
In
going there.
Avalon.
yeah, but they haven't paid a nickel.
Right, but they're, at some point, if they're going to build, they're going to, and we're going to get 90 times $14,000 for the hookups.
Right.
That's 3 years' worth of deficits. I just think we have to work into our projection that there's going to be new people coming on, where this is kind of flat.
We can run it any way you'd like to see it. We're more than happy to do that.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to do anything, I'm not trying to play with the numbers, I just don't want to raise the rates any more than we have to, and I don't want to find, you know, all of a sudden someone comes on and we got $1 million surplus because 90 houses came on and we didn't put it in our projection.
So refresh my memory, I only know from having done expansions in other towns, and the last one that I was part of was a major expansion of 9 miles. How long did it take Musquashkett from the time it passed town meeting to the time that it was actually billed out to people? Do you have a
You're
general
asking the
sense?
wrong cowboy.
3 years.
3 years? So it would be 3 years, so we would want to wait at least 3 years out before we started started incorporating it into the projections for additional sewer users, because we wouldn't actually assess them until after the project was complete. I just want to get an idea of where to add
I
it to the
think, I don't know
projection.
that we have an expansion plan. I mean, if we just had a small expansion plan where we're going to let 20 houses a year on it, that's going to give us $300,000 a year that's going to eat up this deficit.
Well, there's two factors. I mean, one of them is the actual sewer rate that people pay to generate revenue for the operations.
Right.
The second is, that's complicating this, because the rate's been flat for 3 years, is the enormous amount of repairs we're having to put in to an old system. So that's driving up the cost of ordinary repair and capital disproportionate to what you'd see in other departments. So it's sort of a dual challenge that way. We projected out, the last time Laura did the analysis of development permits that are either proposed, planned, or been approved by the ZBA, the planning board, it was about 225 units. So that's not a sewer extension, that's just on the table. That 225 included just a 60-unit development for MBTA, which you're going to be discussing later, and, you know, obviously what's on the table for that triples that potentially. So those are the things that we say where, you know, that'll lead up capacity before we can get a new phase designed and put into place. And I asked her, we had the meeting this morning, was it, Kevin? That Laura needs to update that. You can do it yourself if you have a copy of the development review sheet, but that's what it is about, there was 225 there 18 months ago. And that was planned or approved with as I said, the saving for the MBTA, 97 homes for toll, which is now changing. All of Bartlett's Fields is septic, so does then put in the mix. We have lots and lots of little 2, 3, 4, 5, we talked about this, subdivisions coming on. And we have other projects like Curtis Lane and whatever. So that's the thing that we really didn't do a good job of capturing before as they did, that's eating up capacity. Now, will they bring revenue in at 14,000 when they tie in? Yes. But to our point, we projected that out, 18 months ago, and probably less than half of them have actually been built by now.
Well, my sense of this is that there's three components to it. There's getting the revenue going up, you got to cut the cost to some extent too, and you got to increase the rates. It's three pieces. It's not just jack up the rates.
So the budget was cut considerably in the FY16 request over what was approved and recommended. However, major costs in the sewer treatment plant are for chemicals, and we experienced huge increases in one of the chemical contracts that I know. But a lot of that budget is sort of it's not people, it's overtime the staff isn't, but we've had increased overtime when the plant's gone down, and also because of the chemical costs to run the plant.
So I agree with Tony's points and the rest of the board that this would not be a one-year fix. This would be a multi-year phased approach. However the board wants to approach it, whether it be a percentage increase, a reduction in the base rate, study it a little farther, and then make a recommendation going forward, it would have to be done over multiple years. You couldn't just fix it in 1 year. It's not reasonable. It took a number of years to get to this point. It will take a few years to remedy. One of the concerns I have is that the retained earnings has been certified for the sewer enterprise, and it's only at just over $660,000 as of July 1. So we don't have a lot of money in retained earnings to be able to do what we did at last town meeting for this town meeting if we had to. We did cut their budget by $200,000 last town meeting. Even if we cut them back to bare bones on repair and maintenance and equipment and parts, say to $25,000, so take $100,000 out, that still leaves you with about $300,000 to $400,000 of a gap. In the projection, I did take the electricity down because we're starting to trend lower now, and part of that is from some of the repairs they've done. So we did want to show that that was being reduced significantly over the fiscal 17 projection, which was 375. Because at that time, we were looking at fiscal 15 when we had an electricity bill of $384,000. Fiscal 16 ended, our electricity bill was only $295. So it makes the 375 look not realistic at this point. So certainly we changed that down by $50,000 for fiscal 18, and then did a 2% increment going up from there.
So are you looking for us to vote an increase tonight?
We're looking for you to consider voting an increase tonight if you're not comfortable doing so, telling us what you would like in further information.
Actually, if the board can vote tonight, we actually had this scheduled for August for the board to vote, and understandably, you've had a number of questions, but I'm very hesitant in terms of the cash flow to hold that off another meeting. If there's something that you're very uncomfortable with and don't want to vote, then certainly we'll accommodate that, but
So you have 6 options before you with what the estimated revenue would be from those 6 options. And you also have for your consideration the septic disposal fee, which is currently at 6 cents. I did go back and I talked to Al. He does not recall ever raising that while he was DPW director. So when it was last rated was sometime prior to 2008. I talked to clerical staff and staff down at sewer wastewater treatment plant, and none of them remember the last time it was changed. So we're not exactly sure how long that rate has been in effect, but it has been in effect at least since...
6 cents to 6
Yeah, it's been in effect since at least 2008.
What's the impact of that?
About $39,000 if you went from 6 to 7 cents. And you could go fractional. The reason we didn't recommend fractional was just because administratively, it allows potential for more errors, and it's just more of a headache if it's round cents. And 7 cents is currently what Marshfield would be at, so it would be the same as Marshfield.
So you're recommending 6 to 7?
Yes.
Am I correct?
And that could be whenever the board decided to make it effective.
What we could do, if you want to wait to the next meeting, is we could trend out from the development review team all the building permits that we anticipate with a sewer connection, so you can actually have a real-time number, Tony, on the 14,000 connection for revenue.
Well, I think we need to put our brain around, you know, if somebody wants us to hold spots for them, then they gotta pay for them. You know, we're not just gonna hold, you know, how many people want a spaghetti line? You know, you give 5 people a spaghetti line, hook it onto our sewer somewhere, and there's $70,000. I mean, I'm not saying that's what you do, I'm saying that's an option. We're at a point where we're losing $400,000 a year. You know, we've got to get people onto the system to generate revenue. And it seems like right now we're holding spots for people that may or may not do it, and if they do it, it's not going to be for 3 years. We don't have time to wait.
Do you want me to factor in, say, like 15 hookups as a maximum the board could either, it would be a development, or the board would allow, and put that in the projection for fiscal 18 going forward?
Well, you'd have to
Rather
ask.
than a
Well, I
guess,
think
I'd
whatever
ra-
they vote, you know, you said it's a multi-year process, but it's not, it's going to be dynamic. It's not going to be static, where each year, you know, we can look every quarter and see how many permits there were and how many are projected, because it's going to be driven by the actual permit being pulled.
Right, and I'm trying to get you a realistic number to put in your forecast based on
Which one?
development that we don't know if it's going to start or not.
So
is there-
let me ask you this, Nancy, or Kevin, really. The Phase 2, or the next phase in the sewer hookup was the Tree Streets. I don't know how many homes that entails, but I'm assuming it's clearly 100+. That certainly would, I think, should be a part of the analysis, because if we have capacity for the next 2 phases, then you're talking about the Tree Streets, and I think the next one, is it the North Situate?
Next one will be North Scituate, the third one will be the Minot area.
The minor area. So, I mean, that's what I would say. If that's the capacity, then if somebody is looking to hook up with these projects, then they're going to have to, like to Tony's point, then they should be paying to hold their spot. Otherwise, if we proceed to engineer it, then I think the town needs to vote as to whether or not they want to increase sewer capacity in these areas in their neighborhood. And I think that's the number you'd want to be taking a look at to factor in, you know, potential future hookups to offset the costs.
If you pay a betterment, you don't pay a hookup also, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
No, it's included.
It's the same, that's what it might, yeah.
So we need
it's
to,
one-
we
it's-
need to
it's-
get people
it's the same
on our
thing.
current infrastructure.
That's right. Remember, Al used to say, more customers, paying in, and
Yeah, so the extension would potentially drive increases, well, would drive increases in the user charges, but not necessarily in the connection fees, because the betterment would be
Paying for the connection
debt.
fee. You're right.
But you would see
I
it in the
misspoke.
user
Correct.
charges.
Projection of hookups, where's the revenue, what are you projecting hookup fees for the next 3 years?
We have sewer connection fees,
It just raises.
and they're at $150,000, because there is some volatility to that. So in 2012, they only did 25,000, and it could be because they had a project ongoing. And then in 2016, it was 273,000. Now, I have seen them this year. I've been seeing the receipts coming through for the 14,000. So we put it at 150. I put it at 150. I can certainly go higher on that, but that
Well,
gets you...
it's only going to higher if we make a concerted effort that that's part of our strategy, is to get people on our current system.
And I can check with the sewer department to find out where these are currently coming from, if it's coming from a certain development, or if it's hunt and peck.
Have you seen, Nancy, in other towns demanding that the fee be paid off, you know, for the betterment? I mean, we
It's in the statute that you have the option.
have the option.
Yeah, when you originally assess it, people can choose how many years they want to take it out for. Most choose 20, or if they don't respond to you, you just opt them into the 20-year plan. But some people prepay it. It's surprising how many people
Upon
just
sale,
pay
so
it.
their house is
Not
not
Or
Write
no,
a check
just
on
when
it.
you assess it. So you assess it, they're like, yeah, my house is paid off, I want to pay this off, or I just don't want to deal with it, I don't want it on my taxes.
No, that's not what I'm saying. In other words, when somebody's selling their house, do other towns mandate? I know mortgage companies do, lenders do, because they'll say we want, for the purposes you're saying about
Not in the towns that
prioritization.
I've worked for previously, we've never mandated it from anybody.
Can towns do that? That's my point. In
I
other
wouldn't
words-
think you could, because it's a recorded lien, so you can't call that in. Now, you could call it in if it was a tax title, but there's no way to foreclose on it, so you can't call it in.
Right.
You certainly would, show it on the municipal lien certificate,
yeah.
and that usually forces it to be paid off. I don't recall a time when it wasn't an arm's length sale that a betterment survived a sale. A non-arm's length sale between family members or just, someone shifting it around, they're not going to pay it off. But most mortgage companies do not want to see that out there, especially with the size of the betterments where betterments have risen to in the last few years.
Tricia, so if we were to get this additional information, would it hurt us to vote this at the next meeting?
I think it's still going to be what it is. I don't think it's going to
Nothing's going to change,
change
right?
what we've
But
projected so far.
Right, exactly.
I hope it does. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about increase in revenue. I hope this piece of paper changes. How,
She's already factored in 150,000 already in the connections. That's 10 connections.
right, that's what's happening just on a regular
That's
basis.
brand-new dwellings, 10 brand-new
But
dwellings.
it's just happening every year because these things that are in the pipeline are flushing through. So we've got to make a concerted effort to get 10 more people in. But the big thing is, based on this, did you run this at other usage levels? 12,000, is that a normal usage?
So the tie-in bond survey that Al used to present to you for the water and sewer rates, that's what I used, that's what they use, that's how they have their state average calculated as well. They just don't do the survey anymore. They stopped doing it in 2014. They said they're going to start doing it again, so we have to do it ourselves. I can run it at any usage you want.
Would you run it at anything other than 12?
No, I can run it at any one you
12
want.
What does our normal person use?
Must be 12, that's why they must have picked it.
that's
No, that was what
that's where
tie-in
the
bond
break-
bases it on. Bear with me, I can probably tell you.
Because
Well,
based
you
on
could-
this, it's
We
clear
can figure
that
it
our
out.
rates are
Yeah,
low.
you could take
Pretty
all the
simple.
houses,
It
what they
gives you-
used
Yeah,
to...
I have it on the
years.
spreadsheet, yeah.
You've got the cubic footage.
Add those
Yeah.
up and divide it by the number.
Yeah, I can rerun it based on what our average usage is to see what it would be with other municipalities.
So when do we anticipate sending out the sewer bill? November?
So we have one more precinct that would go out at the end of this month, and then the next one should go out at the end of October, which would be the second quarter period.
Yeah,
Period.
So we've
that's
already
for the
missed-
year.
We've
So
missed the
you
whole
take
first
all
quarter.
these, divide it by the number, then divide it by 4 to get your... So if you just did the first few,
Yeah, but
84, 72, and 50...
You got to be careful about that, Sean, because you're seasonal users.
That's right, too,
right.
summer houses.
Yeah, I have the detail by quarter, so I can figure out an
Pick
average.
one.
So if this is accurate, then it's clear that we are very lowly priced anyways.
Yeah.
We're number 9 out of 12.
It would go up to
Similar to
8.
our water. So I feel comfortable making some sort of a
Adjustment,
change.
yeah.
We have to start moving in that direction over time, but I don't know that I go, I think it's got to be, those other components have got to be worked in too, to meet up the deficit. Plus, we have 600 grand that's really just prepaid dollars,
What concerns me, though, Tony, is looking at the whole package, looking at the condition of the system itself, looking at I&I, looking at all these things that we have down the road. You know what I mean? You can't just ignore the fact that those exist as well.
I'm not ignoring that.
No, but I think we are. We're talking about adding, but we're not talking about fixing. There's thousands and, millions of gallons of seawater that run through the pipes that run through our sewer system. Now you take those, you fix that, and now you get all kinds of water that can run through as many hookups as you'd like.
We've been fixing that
The ocean's not paying for that.
15 years that I've been doing this.
I'm just saying,
So anything's better than what we have. If we vote a 10% rate increase, it's going to generate 112. We go to the 50% that you'd recommend, it's going to generate $228,000.
What you do with the recommendation is you save some people who probably are the ones who really can't afford it. You save over 200 homes that don't have any increase at all.
201.
201, I knew it was over 200. So those are 200 homes that really probably are in that area that they can't afford it.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
We recommend, of the two options, a percentage increase to the rate or a percentage reduction in the base allowed usage, I think Kevin and I agree, we would prefer you do a reduction in the base rate allowed usage.
Correct.
But we did provide you with 3 different options. We're recommending to you the 50%.
Right.
All 4 is there, 25, 36, 50, and a full 100%, which we don't recommend. So if the board wants to take some action but is not ready to commit to the 50%, there are 2 other options there that you could look at. And again, the lower that is, the more people that would likely be held harmless or have less of an impact. Actually, it's right there. It says it would be a 25% reduction would probably be a 9% increase, which would be the average bill of 36. A 30% reduction would be a 14% average increase with an average bill of 54. And keeping in mind that as more people come up to that limit, they're going to be held harmless as long as they don't go over either the 9.38 or the
Sure.
800 cubic feet per quarter.
I was trying to see where I sat, but my address isn't on there, so I'm not sure where I...
Are we billing you? No.
Didn't. There's a lot of addresses in
Do we
it.
bill monthly?
Quarterly, right. Let's start with a 25% reduction.
Maybe. What's the revenue for that?
Split it,
Right.
you know, a little less of an impact.
I mean, I just
to
feel
the
like we have to do
2 uses.
something.
Mhm, I
Can't do
agree.
This is an annual increase, right? $80?
Yes.
Right.
For the year.
Yes,
Exactly.
definitely.
I really don't have a problem with the 50% increase. You know, it's not solving the problem. It's 200 grand of the 400 that you're looking for. I just think you got to find that other 200 grand through
Somewhere
revenue
else.
sources and cutting costs.
Do you mean the 50% reduction in
It's
the
a
base rate,
reduction in the
which is
base
just
rate.
20%?
Right.
I just want to make sure people know that
Yeah,
it's
so it
really a
reduces the rate.
20%
20%.
increase, not a 50,
Yeah.
right?
50%
Just wanna make
reduction
sure we're
in
all on the
that
same
would be
page
create a
here.
20%.
Yeah.
Right.
And that actually helps, what, 201 homes with,
Based on the fiscal 16 usage.
right.
What's the average sewer bill?
The average is 394 right now,
Annually?
annually,
Just for sewer.
just for sewer.
$30 a month for sewer.
30, yeah.
And what percentage are we at sewage? 40?
Oh, not that high.
In the 20s.
Yeah, we're down in the 20s. I believe.
Percentage of sewer,
Percentage of sewer in the whole town?
Of residents?
more than 20. We're at 20 before we started that.
What's the total number?
I think it's about 28.
28, it's
How many homes?
3,000 roughly?
7,000 homes?
It was 3,000
How many
here.
homes?
About 7,000 homes in the town?
17,
And keep in mind, this includes,
18,
It's 9?
I was going to say, it's more like
this
8.
includes commercial.
it's a little over 2,000
Where was I?
I have a 10 out there, how about 6?
on sewer.
28.
First she pulled out that
I
number.
thought it, okay.
First she pulled out the number.
I mean, you could look at other things, Tony, to that effect, if you wanted to, like in water, we have tiered rates, so the more you use, the more you pay, so if you are really a high user, you would have a higher impact.
Right.
That depends on if you wanted to impose that type of structure in sewer. It's not, you don't necessarily see it all the time. Usually it's a flat rate, but it's something
Similar
else
to
you
the
could look
water,
at.
though,
Yeah.
really, you know, higher use, higher I can't even talk anymore. Higher users
I know
are
the
paying the
feeling.
premium, you know?
It's not as common, but it's something we could look at if you wanted us to.
Well, what does everybody think?
Want a motion? I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay, good, I like that.
You know, if you do the one that you're recommending, half of the people's bill only goes up less than $7 or less a month.
Oh, a month.
Yeah. Plus the fact that we would request that you make that motion effective for October 1, so for the second quarter, so they would have already received 1 quarter at the lower rate and only the last 3 quarters.
Well, that's-
So do we agree on the recommended?
Well, I guess my concern is that that doesn't cover your whole deficit.
It doesn't, no.
So you got to find the rest of it other places.
But it is a good starting point, and it's a good compromise. Okay, we are going to raise the rates, but now you have your marching orders. You need to look at your expenses. You need to look at other types of revenue sources that you can do to bridge that gap.
All right.
Will the Board of Selectmen vote to decrease the allowed usage in the sewer base rate by 50% from 12.500 cubic feet to 6.2500 cubic feet, effective October 1st, 2016, and increase the septic disposal fee from 6 cents per gallon to 7 cents per gallon, also effective October 1st, 2016.
Second.
Second by Ms. Curran. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everybody unanimous? Okay.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you, I mean, eventually, we've got to get whatever your cost reduction and other revenue sources have got to come back so that we see that this is zero.
We'll do the revenue projection. We have that information. We can just get it and update it.
And we can certainly include it with the budget documents as well.
But I think we hit the nail on the head. We've got to use more people in our existing system. And Sean, I'm sure you can think of 10 people right now that would want to hook up.
Love to. I'm sure.
I'm sure. I mean, the guy that came in that lives up on,
In the harbor?
Yeah.
I also think we need to come up with a plan of what we're going to do.
Tricia,
You're supposed to, Kevin, you're going to come back again at some point on phasing. I know we've been dealing with water, but that was a topic that we're going to have at some point in our future.
We do. We have 2 phases that were submitted, and there was talk of switching the order around to looking at order and discussing which ways would go in the future. What we want to do is get our hands around what was going on in the plant. If you recall, last year, we had a clarifier fail middle of the season, and we were really behind the 8 ball with that out of the 3 clarifiers. Since then, we've repaired that clarifier. We've also rebuilt the second clarifier, and in our capital plan the following year, we're going to rebuild our 3rd clarifier. We also got aeration tank 4 going. Right now, we've drained aeration tank 3, and we're starting to clean up that, and we're making a lot of important repairs to the facility itself. And the hope is, as we get a lot of this stuff up and going, that we will be able to handle an expansion without a problem. We didn't want to take on expansion immediately. By adding that added flow, we were having trouble with the flows we were taking in now. And that's kind of where we left it off. And the water has consumed a lot of our time, a lot of my time, but it is something
Did
we're looking at.
appropriate $400,000 in 2014 for design and engineering the next phase.
That's what I thought.
So the money's already there to do the
Do it.
next phase once the board determines what it is.
And how do we notify residents that this usage rate changed? Is there a note on the bill, just because it's not going to be equally as apparent to them, because it's not a rate change, it's a usage change?
No.
How do we advise them of
Get
that?
with PM and with the water department to see if they can have the software company include something on the second quarter going forward, a message on the bill.
Yeah, just to
saying
let
that,
them,
They're having a change in the rate structure and you will see that your bill increased because of this.
yep, that'd be great.
All right, Kevin, contract award. Salt contract to Eastern Salt Company.
Contract award, yes. We were looking at, and I hate to even think of this now, we're talking about a drought, but we're preparing for winter.
Right.
We need the moisture.
What's that?
I'll take the snow.
Exactly. So what we've done is we worked off the state bid list to procure a contract to purchase salt. And we've got a price of $66.31. Last year, we were $68.36 per ton. And we also have, if we fill up our salt shed before mid-October, we get $1 discount per ton that we get by filling it up now, because the ships are coming in now and they're looking to deliver it and get it all built up. So that worked out
And
pretty
you
well.
were able to negotiate with them to give us a Norfolk County rate?
Exactly. Good pickup, Marty. What we did is we're technically in the 5A area, which is 68.91,
Right.
but we're on the border with the Cohasset, so what we're able to do is negotiate and get the other rate to lower
It's
that down a little bit.
$2.60 difference,
Yep.
and possibly another $1, right?
Yep, so we were able to get down into the MassDOT Area 6 list and work that out to get the 66.31, which is a better rate by a couple bucks.
Yeah.
Excellent. Motion?
Will Board of Selectmen allow the Department of Public Works to purchase salt from Eastern Salt Company for a unit price of $66.31?
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. Further discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
And what we'll be looking to do is take advantage of the take advantage of the dollar discount and fill our salt shed up. That's why we got a large salt shed and save some money in that way.
Okay, and the next one is the contract award for roadway drainage system improvements to Weston and Sampson, not to exceed $55,200.
Correct. What we did is we put an RFP out, and we're looking at the two culverts, one at Gilson Road and the other one at Bailey's Causeway, and we're looking how we can make significant improvements to that. They clog up on a regular basis, they're undersized, and we're hoping that we can get engineered plans and cost estimates to rebuild these, put new structures in, and would improve the marshes, would improve the flow going through there, and it'd be an all-around good project.
Now, is that for engineering, Kevin?
That's just for engineering.
Okay.
Engineering and permitting and all alike.
Where on Gilson Road is it, Kevin?
Right before Town Way.
Yeah, big.
You know,
So it's right in that
the
end-
small
that-
one that always, it consistently floods right there.
Always, coming down
As
that
soon as you
hill.
get, right before you go up Third Cliff,
Yeah,
right?
it would be Town Way. being
Right,
the
Town
left.
Way.
That's Town Way. All right.
Kevin, isn't that, I mean, how much is it for permitting? I mean, what's your feeling on that?
Well, it's significant, and you have to, I've talked to a couple of the engineering firms, and if you saw some of the other fees, they were upwards of $100,000 and $104,000. One of the things they have to do is a study on the marsh and check the volume of water that goes in and out, so that you don't bring too much water in and drown the marsh, and you also keep it correctly. So there's a lot of permitting involved in that. The other thing you have to look at, too, is kayaks, people on canoes, how to protect that area and everything else. You don't want to build something too huge where people could get sucked in during a high tide or something to that
I don't
effect.
think there's anyone that's had a kayak that's gone under Gilson Road.
No, but
ever.
with the newer structure, it'll be bigger. It'll definitely be
Right.
bigger.
I just don't know if you guys, permitting, I have no idea, but designing, I don't know if you give yourself enough credit. You just go right up the street and get a few lengths of 48-inch concrete pipe and a flared outlet, head wall, whatever, and it's
A
done.
lot of it's the permitting and the study of what the
Right.
flows
I'd
are and
like-
what it's going to
I'd
be
like
the
to
effect
think
on the
so,
marsh.
Right,
In going
but-
through DEP. I mean, we could say, yeah, we could put 48-inch precast type 5 pipe in there with steel, and we'd have all our loading that we need.
Right.
But if we killed the marsh or did anything to that effect,
Right. No, but it's much needed. I remember talking to the residents out there years ago, and they'll be thrilled to have something done. A motion, Marty?
Yes, please.
Will the Board of Selectmen allow the DPW to retain the services of Weston Sampson engineers to prepare, design, permits, and bid documents for the culvert replacements? Design fee shall not exceed $55,200 in accordance with the engineer's proposal. Source of funding shall be from two sources. The first one, $50,000 approved at the April 2016 annual town meeting, and secondly, $5,200 from the DPW Engineering Division's Technicals Services.
Second.
Second by Mr. Danahy. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. And then,
our third contract is for the award of potassium hydroxide to Univar USA. Potassium hydroxide is used at the drinking water plant. There is a typo on the agenda. It's not $3,390 per gallon, it's $3.39 per gallon that
Thank
we
God.
purchase this for, and we buy it in bulk.
I was going to say, no wonder. Just,
Is that the same as last year?
This one off the Eastern Consortium, I believe it's higher. I don't have that in front of me right now.
okay.
I have the contracts on my computer, I can look it up. I can tell you last year we spent about $94,000 in that particular contract. One sec. Scrolling.
Kevin, while she's looking, I got two things I'd like to ask of you. First is, you're talking about like the culvert on, Gilson. There's obviously one on Gannett between the Gulf River. There's actually two sinkholes on the side of the road. One, I think, is close to like a drainage, but there's another one that's literally a significant one. I've seen it when I've ridden a bicycle out there, and it's dangerous. Somebody puts their tire in it, they're going to do a header right there in the middle of, it's right at the end of Hallett and
Yeah, I've
and
seen it, we filled it up before because it does open up. That's something we can take a look at.
So just take a look at it. And the second thing is, I'd asked this about a year ago, and I was wondering if maybe you could take a look again. Tennis courts over at Gates Middle School,
Yep.
lights are out. There are people who play, and they were asking about getting it repaired. I got buttonholed a few weeks ago, and the person said it never was, so he caught me at the same place, same
I was actually
thing.
out there the other night, and I did look at the lights,
Okay.
and it was all lit up, because I talked to Mike about that, we spoke about it before.
Correct.
And I happened to be coming back in the Situate, I was
So you've looked at it,
down there,
and
I
they're
took a
working?
look at it, and the
Okay.
courts were all lit up.
Okay, good.
So I assumed he fixed it. If there's another problem or some light that we're missing.
I'll go back and tell the person that they've been fixed, so.
Yeah,
good.
and
He'll be
it was
happy.
all, it looked really good, actually.
There was a problem with the timer on them at one point,
There
too.
was a
that
problem
might
with
have
the
been it,
timer,
too.
something
All right.
happened. I don't know, I heard two different stories of what happened with the timer.
Those are my two.
Before you get to that, one other thing, we spoke about that Elm Street triangle thing.
Yes.
Is that painted yellow yet? That cone on it isn't,
No, it isn't. We'll be resurfacing around that area, and what we did is, I actually went out there with Sean yesterday, or the day before, and they tried to, actually, Sean and Danny went out. They tried to apply the tape. We have a yellow highway tape, and we're gonna put the tape on the side. It wouldn't stick to the granite, and it wouldn't stick to the asphalt. And where they're grinding today, what we were gonna do is put it up after the
a
grinding.
painter or something. I know 3 people that have driven over it.
Okay.
It's, you can't see it at night.
Did you find anything, Nancy?
Put cones?
It's actually
Cone on it, you don't see the
No,
cone?
no, you don't.
360,
$3.61,6218. Sorry, he can't read my writing and I can't read this far. It's 3.6218.
And what is it now? It's 339?
It went down.
339.
Beautiful. Can I have a motion?
Will the Board of Selectmen allow the Department of Public Works to purchase potassium hydroxide from Univar USA, Inc. for a unit price of $3.39 per gallon?
Second.
Second by Ms. Curran. Further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Actually, Kevin, you told me it had gone down, didn't you? I think. you
I
already told me.
did, but I got confused with the rates and
It's okay.
other things and didn't remember up top of
But I
my
didn't
head.
want to say for sure.
I didn't want, and I was worried you were going to ask me to explain how the potassium, how we treat the water with it, but at one point I did know.
So
but
you know
it
the
would've
answer to
been-
that one?
It would have been a little
I'll
rough.
ask you that if you want.
So I have 3 items that I'm going to look into for you guys. John, the potholes, the tennis courts are all set, I believe. If you do have a problem, let me know.
Yep.
And the Elm Street Island, we'll look to do something, get it painted or get some reflectors on it. I know the guys were out there, but we'll follow up on that.
Yeah, last time when we spoke, they just put a cone on it.
Yeah, sometimes if you don't do it yourself,
All right, I do have one last thing.
Thank you.
Actually,
Sorry
Kevin,
for
one
keeping
last
you
thing,
so
because I know we're, Beaver Dam, Jericho Road, the light, when you're coming down Beaver Dam to take a left onto Jericho, it literally, the arrow goes on for literally like 1 second, then turns yellow. Can you take a look at that? Beforehand, it was on for like 5 seconds, or an
About the green
eternity.
arrow?
Yeah, the green arrow, it is like, it goes green and then yellow. You just, can they maybe do it for at least, adjust it
It's enough for
slightly?
maybe, at the very most, 2 vehicles.
Not even, one.
Did
The
it-
next one's going through a yellow light, which could be right, that's what I'm saying.
Did you notice like a change? Did
Yeah, they
something-
changed. It used to be longer,
Because
and
nobody's
then
been
it's
playing
now,
with it, but I'll
it's really
check
quick.
it in
I think it's always been
Jericho.
that quick, but...
Initially, it wasn't. It was long.
Really?
Now it's like really quick.
You're just getting older.
Okay, running a little behind, slightly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. Next, we have a discussion of the sale of land, Greenbush Development. Mike Travellini.
You guys, are you going to ask them to change that to be neutral?
I hope I said that right.
You did, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that. I'm actually joined by Zoe Agnew and Laura Kaplan from my team tonight.
Is that yours?
That's mine.
Sorry for keeping you
No worries.
people so
It's yours.
late.
No, this is it right here. Okay. You lose it, it's on here, but this is mine.
We have,
It's my problem.
Oh, where'd you get that? Oh, that's from last time?
This?
Yes.
No, this is stuff that, from like a few months ago.
Right.
I learned to bring all my stuff, fellas.
Not you, so.
Where's yours? Did you bring yours?
Actually, I might have.
Anyone bring any snacks?
I have taffy.
okay.
Taffy?
Yeah, do you have any taffy, actually? I'll eat it. I'm hungry.
You know where it is.
That's what we need in town, a taffy place.
Thank you for staying awake and everything.
Not a problem.
No problem. Thank you very much for having us. We appreciate it.
Certainly.
So, just wanted to start off with a little background, I guess, of how we got to this point. We had originally put out the MBTA station parcel in 2014, I believe, and Conroy Development was the designated developer. As you are aware, obviously that deal did fall apart for a couple of reasons. But one of them was, we heard that they had a problem either trying to acquire a town-owned parcel that was adjacent to our land, or to sort of modify their design to what parcel that we went out with.
Thank you.
So we took that feedback that we got, and this past fall when we were thinking about drafting another ITB and bringing this parcel back out to bid, we had the idea of approaching the town to see if there was a possibility of working with Scituate to go out with the town parcel as well, square off the parcel and give it about 30,000 more square feet. We had some informal conversations with the town dating all the way back to January of this year. And in April, we met with Patricia and Selectman Dennehy, and we kind of got the go-ahead to include the town parcel in our ITB with the provision that we would be bringing it to the Board of Selectmen in the fall, so that we could get final approval for it and then to town meeting. So that's how we got here. And tonight, I think we want to provide you with an update of where we're at in that process, and also talk about the price of the parcel and how we can work that out and negotiate that going further. So we have received 2 bids for the parcel. We're currently reviewing them. We are in the final stages of our review. We've actually received feedback from Patricia and from Laura Harbaugh on both development plans. But we're very cognizant of what the town would like to see, and we're very cognizant that the town wants the design proposal to fit into their zoning bylaws. And because of that, we actually have asked for one final zoning clarification from each bidder as to how they will fit into the zoning code and how their design and development plan will be able to get through the permitting process. So we hope to designate very, very soon. In fact, at the next meeting, we hope to have a development plan for you. And we hope that will be one that will be something that will be amenable to you and something that can work its way through the permitting process. So that's just sort of an update of where we're at right now with the deal itself. As for price, I know that in our informal conversations, we talked about a price of $225,000 for the town-owned parcel. That came from that number came from just a prorated portion of the appraisal price that we received, based on the amount of land that was given to the entire development by the town, and based on the appraisal number that we got in March. And I think, Laura, if you want to speak to a little bit more about the process that we may go through to transfer the ownership of the land.
So what we're proposing is to transfer the land once our designated developer has successfully completed the permitting process. So what we're looking for is an option agreement that brings us, through that period of time when they are going through permitting, and enables us to close and then immediately transfer the land to the developer. So we've asked for a 3-year option period, not because we think it's going to take 3 years for the project, but just if for some reason something goes wrong, we'd be able to come back and try again within the option period.
I got you. So that's, I guess, where we stand, and that's where, our update, we're more than willing to answer any questions that you may have and talk about sort of our next steps and what you'd like to see from us.
That was the question I was going to ask. So you're going to basically contingent on them getting a building permit for what they want to do. And if they should fail,
so
for whatever reason.
Yeah, so we're gonna designate, and then, but what we're working right now is to make sure that they submit to you for permitting something that is actually going to be permittable. We're really aware, based on our conversations, previously with the town, what you're looking for, what type of development you'd like to see. So we want to make sure that everything that was passed on to us from the town is being passed on to the developers, and they're proposing something that is a realistic possibility. But we'll be designating and then obviously sort of working with the developer and with the town through the permitting process to ensure that something gets done.
So I guess my question would be, if the deal was to fall apart with one or the other, the whole deal falls apart, correct? Including the deal with the town-owned land?
That's, I believe, what we would like, probably what we would...
You want a 3-year option to buy this piece of
Coverage of
property.
the option period.
Yeah.
Right, but we wouldn't get to closing unless we had a successful developer.
Right.
Okay.
So, just so we understand, you guys are the brokers for the property between the MBTA and the developer?
Correct, yes.
Exactly.
We're from JLL and Greystone. Together we make up Massachusetts Realty Group, so we're the real estate consultant and broker for the MBTA.
And you want us to say that you can have this piece of property for $225,000 for a period of 3 years?
Correct, yes.
And provided that, and then you're telling us what you're going to do is make sure that the project comes back where it meets our bylaws and our zoning requirements to someone?
Correct, yeah.
So what piece of, I guess, the first thing I thought is what are you getting for the property, and what piece of the pie do we have of that property? So we have, what, 10% of it, of the total property?
Yeah, about 13%.
And what are they offering you for the property? Like, would we have an upside on it as well? Would we be able to say either or?
Sorry, so you're saying if our developer came in over the designate, or over the appraisal number, would you
Say you
have an
get $10 million
option?
for the piece of property,
Yeah.
right?
We want
Yeah.
13%.
Yeah.
Us selling you 13% for 225 grand doesn't look too good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Understand, I understand obviously where it's coming from, and we're open to sort of negotiation with that. Our bids, have come in not too much higher than our appraisal number. So we certainly would not be talking about a big discrepancy between that 225,000, whatever it came out.
But to be clear, that number that we came up with was to be fair from the beginning, and we're certainly open to continuing being fair.
I mean, it was actually to be more than fair from the beginning, because what we did is we just took the straight pro rata share, even though the town's parcel has no frontage of its own and wouldn't really be developable on its own. So we were trying to be good to the town and fair with the town up front.
But it abuts property we own, so we all own homes here in town, so we do know what it's worth.
That's why we took kind of a dollar per square foot price and just applied it to everyone equally.
And it's really a leverage piece in a way, because without it, somebody may not be interested,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a possibility. I mean, that's why we reached out, in the first place. We think it does benefit the property.
Yeah, we're approaching this as a mutually beneficial deal. It certainly shapes the property correctly, and we hope to add value to yours.
Exactly.
Of course. So what are we hoping to accomplish tonight?
You have to agree on the purchase price, which I recommend you go into executive session to further discuss what's been offered on the table. And then I think, I was out, so I missed what the development's actually going to look like.
Yeah, they didn't go, they just went to the two plans that we've all seen, and that they're going back to get them redesigned to try and meet our zoning bylaws.
And the exact purchase price on the selected bidder was it 2.3, Mike?
There's no designated bidder yet. We haven't designated anyone yet, but yes, the bids came in at about 2.35 or 2.375 and 2.21.
Right.
But we are judging the responsiveness of both bids right now.
Still, okay. That's a little different than I was told when we spoke a week ago, but I'll take that. Okay.
Let me do the quick math.
We can do that
Okay. So, do you want to talk about the development at all? I mean, we all saw the pictures.
Yeah.
I want to say first, in my opinion, I haven't spoken to any of you about it, but I think it's a great place for development.
Sure.
It's a perfect place of town.
Yep.
It's near the train, you know, it's a place that could be highly commercial.
Absolutely.
Of the few areas in town that we have. That being said, one of the plans was a monstrosity, you know, it was, well, that's
Hotel.
probably a little extreme, but it was bigger than I think what I was hoping to go there with. But I like the concept of it. I like the hotel. I like the living. I like the retail and mixed-use space. And the parking garage just seemed like, you know, more of a city than a town development. So, and then the other one almost seemed like every other development we have in town.
No, I haven't, I know which one
So,
it is, which, I like the other one better.
So those were my ideas on it. I don't know what impact you actually have on what the development finally looks like.
Well, so we heard, excuse me, we heard similar feedback, and you know, that was relayed on to both developers. Is that, you know, again, this is going to have to go through a permitting process, and you know, I guess similar feedback was passed on, and they are, that specific design plan, you know, they've already proposed some changes to it, to possibly fit into zoning and to make it more to your liking and to more into the character, I guess, of the town. So, but again, you know, we are still judging, again, the responsiveness of both bids and ensuring that, you know, it hits the criteria the town's trying to look for.
In terms of direct influence of what the developments are, we look at something being successful and permittable, not influencing what the actual details of them are. That's more of what we look to you for. So success obviously is for everyone involved for getting it completed and built, but we can't influence the actual details of anything beyond permitting success.
So our concern, though, is that there's a certain price point at which the developer will want their ROI.
Yep.
And conceivably, that's been calculated based on what's been presented to you. But both of those projects as presented won't get any permits because they both exceed the height requirements on paper right now conceptually, and in addition to other setback requirements and design review requirements of the planning board. So the concern is just if the permitting is going to actually result in less of a incentive for the preferred developer that you select because of that. Because I think, like Selectman Vignani said, the concepts are great, you know, a hotel and housing, but it's the scale that's going to drive it.
This is the street, there's a wall.
So I would obviously agree with that, and that's why we want to make it as clear as possible as to what they have to follow. And if they don't think that they can, you know, change their design so that it is going to get permitted, and they think it's going to affect return on investment in a negative way, no, they should let us know that they're going to withdraw the bid. But we haven't heard that from any developer yet.
Okay.
But know that.
I mean, have they looked into it enough to be aware of the changes that would need to be made?
Yes.
Oh,
I mean, absolutely.
Okay.
Do you require them to do any market studies on the proposals? So one of the proposals had a very large hotel on it.
Hotel component.
Yeah, so I'm curious about the viability of that, and what type of research you have them do with regards to that if
Yeah,
use them.
it's a good question. I mean, we don't require market studies. But, you know, I think that a lot of due diligence was done on the part of the developer to propose something that they think would work there. But, you know, it's certainly a good question to raise.
The closest I would say we come to that is vetting the past experiences and successes of each of the developers. So that's part of our due diligence during the designation process to make sure they're viable candidates and that they are likely to achieve
their goals, and certainly a strong developer would have a lot of market experience and market studies, but that's not part of our designation process.
Have you worked with these developers before on something similar to this, or?
No, I don't think.
Along those lines, because you don't want to get a year and a half down the road and have these
Sure.
developers say, oh, it's, to Tricia's point, oh, it's, if we have to reduce it this way and this way, now it's not going to work. Everyone spent a year and a half going through a lot of meetings and so forth, and they walk.
Right. So, MRG has not worked with these two specific developers, but as part of our ITB proposals, we do require a lot of prior development history, and the ones that designated developer is designated, we're more than happy to show you their entire proposal so that you're pretty comfortable with the depth of work that they've done, as we are right now.
Get experience.
Because they do have experience both on a state and a national level. So we're confident that they'd be able to work with us and with the town to get something through.
What about traffic impact?
It's something that's been passed on based on our conversations to definitely keep in mind, along with additional public benefit if they want to maximize that.
Right.
And we understand too, obviously, like Zoe said, they're going to go through the entire permitting process, but we want to make sure that when they present it, it doesn't look outlandish to the town.
Great. So we're going to go to executive session and discuss this?
And move back into open session, Tricia, or?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll do that now okay. Consider a motion to consider the value of real property located in Greenbush as I declare that an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the board.
You have a motion, John? or-
I'll move the Board of Selectmen go into executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, in particular Greenbush, portion of land that the town owns, and to reconvene an open session thereafter.
Second?
Second by Mr. Harris.
Roll call vote. Mr. O'Shea?
Yes.
Mr. Vignani?
Yes.
Mr. Danahy?
Yes.
Ms. Curran? Yes. Mr. Harris?
Yes.
All in favor? You have to say for the motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So now we got
Could I have a motion to reconvene into open session?
moved. So moved. Second?
Second by Mr. Danahy. All those in favor?
Aye. They know to come back in?
You want to get them?
We're eating all our candy in there.
You gonna
I
get
know.
them?
You both gonna go
Get
get
them.
If you have
That's
any
not very nice.
cookies in there,
You got any pizza?
Starving.
Oh, something.
I think we're live, right, John? He's gonna have to cut that out.
Bring in some
You know we're
pizza.
live,
What are we
John,
doing, huh? It's
That, huh?
10:30. We've been sitting here for 3.5 hours. Getting punchy.
It's like ridiculous.
Okay. So we discussed it pretty lengthily, and what we've come up with is, considering it's the 13%, what we'd like to do is do 13% or 225, whichever is greater, of the purchase.
13.34%.
What?
Whatever the percent of the property is.
It's
13.4%
13.4% of the total parcel.
Sounds right.
Okay.
Okay, we'll certainly bring that back to
Can
the
we bring that
MBTA
back to
and.
the MBTA and discuss? Just be in touch with.
Sure.
Okay.
That's great. I think,
Do you need it
Yeah,
in writing? Or do we provide it to them in writing, or?
Sure, that would be helpful. That would be great,
you've
thank
got
you.
YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
If you
Perfect.
send me an email tomorrow, I can reply
Sure.
to it.
Okay, perfect.
Will do.
Why don't we do a motion and a vote at that amount?
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Sure.
You have the exact numbers, Tony. Why don't you do the motion?
Sure. Move that the Board of Selectmen offer to sell the property at the MBTA parking lot for an amount of $225,000 or 13.34% of the total sale price of the property, whichever one's higher. And that would be the gross price of the property.
Second. Second by Ms. Curran. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Good.
Good.
See where it goes.
Much.
Thank you so much.
We're all together.
Thank you. Sorry for keeping you so late.
That's no problem.
Not a problem at all.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too.
See ya.
I'll leave when you want.
Yeah,
All right, thanks.
that way I'll remember.
All right, sounds good. How are you going?
Lorraine, in the
Night.
morning, just, I have my meeting in Pembroke, so just email me what they just voted.
Next, we have a discussion and vote on the polling hours for the general election on Tuesday, November 8th, 2016. And I believe that also includes the early voting hours, too. Does anybody have that motion?
Looking for it right now.
It's at the very end, like, way, way down.
Is it after the liquor licenses?
It's 100, it's
Before.
page 170 or something.
Here it is. I'll move that the election poll hours for the general election to be held on Tuesday, November 8th, 2016, at the Scituate High School Gymnasium located at 606 Chief Justice Cushing Way are 7 a.m. till 8 o'clock p.m.
Second.
Second by Mr. Vignani. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then we want to just note that the early voting site, Town Hall, is the recommended option due to the proximity of the town clerk's office and the accessibility of voter records. Early voting will take place at Town Hall during normal business hours beginning on October 24, 2016 through November 4, 2016, Monday through Wednesday, and Thursday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:45 p.m. Tuesday, 8:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., and Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. Additional hours on Saturday, October 29, 2016, 8 a.m. to noon. Okay? Next, we have a discussion vote of the donation of land at Zero Metacomet land donation. But
Is there information in your packet on that?
Yeah, it
There's a
seems to
letter,
be
yeah.
a parcel of land that's on the eastern side of the Herring Brook that's landlocked.
Yep.
And that the person is looking to donate it to the town. The exact acreage is, I forgot what it was. When I looked
With no
it up. 3.5
restrictions.
acres.
With no restrictions on its use.
Yeah.
So this was reviewed under our guidelines from donation of land in both conservation and DPW, water resources indicated an interest because it's right near the reservoir and would be a good water resource recharge area.
Yeah, it connects from the reservoir down to the, that's where the Herring Brook goes.
Yep.
From the reservoir down to Old Oak and Bucket.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Is there a
So the
map?
pond. Yeah, it's, you gotta go back. It's up over here. It's one of these up here, so if you go back.
Does the correspondence I included say it was actually going to go through
There you go.
CPC at one point?
Yeah,
let's
so
see,
this is
country
nice,
Right
yeah.
here. And then a comment was this little straight there. It's this parcel. It's landlocked.
I think it's a very
It's actually,
nice-
it makes
very nice
sense. It makes
donation.
perfect sense to do it. I suppose probably the
It makes
person
good sense.
had hoped that maybe there could have been some kind of development at one point, but it's landlocked.
Yep.
So it's,
This one is not paying taxes.
Okay.
Page trail.
My page is not the same as yours.
Oh, somewhere around
country, this is
40.
my office.
So the board needs town meeting approval
up
to
here.
sell land, but when land is donated and it's for conservation purposes, it's just a vote of the Board of Selectmen.
Reservoir.
But this is unrestricted, though. I mean, we're going to put it into conservation because it
We're gonna
makes
put it
sense
in
to do
conser-
it.
yeah.
But
How many acres is it?
3.5.
Okay. Can we have a motion?
We have a motion. I'll move to accept the donation of parcel ID 48-01-005, 0 Rear Metacomet Road for the use as water resource protection.
Second.
Second by Ms. Curran. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, then we have a discussion vote on one-day wine and malt licenses.
I'll move to approve a one-day wine and malt for tailor-made bartending for a senior singing group at St. Mary's Parish on September 30th, 2016, from 5 o'clock in the afternoon until 8 p.m.
Second.
Second by Ms. Curran. All those in favor?
Aye.
You have to go back, John, to one.
So that's the, that's
Go
not
back
the
one
Etrusco,
page.
okay.
Oh, I do, huh? Oh,
Yeah.
so hang on. It's coming
Don't
back
want to
up
miss
again.
anybody.
No, I'm not. I've got 3 more here.
Silent
That's the first
Chef.
one.
You do the Etrusco one?
Silent
Yeah,
Chef.
that's the third one. Let me get to the second one. Move to approve a one-day wine and malt for tailor-made bartending for a celebration of life at the Scituate Maritime Center on October 10th, 2016, from 12 p.m. until 4 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. And I further move to approve a one-day wine and malt for Silent Chef for a Etrusco annual meeting at the Scituate Maritime Center on August 2nd, 2016, from 4 in the afternoon until 8 p.m.
Second.
Second by Mr. Vignani. All those in favor?
Aye.
You know, I want to just give a quick shout out to the Etrusco. That is a great organization.
Isn't it?
They're awesome.
They, as I'm sure a lot of you people know, they give wheelchairs, beds,
Walkers, everything.
all kinds of specialty equipment that people need when they're injured or handicapped.
And for years.
At no cost and or donation, and it's, they're there, and we're very lucky to
great.
have it. People come from all the towns around to use it.
We do.
Alan Wheeler donated, might have built the building as a gift to the town as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, John. The Silent Chef was on here first. I didn't realize. I'm going by this agenda.
That's all right. I hit them all. Correspondence? Where's the clerk?
We have discuss.
Discuss.
Doing-
See?
Huh?
Now, that is on the agenda in the right order.
Town council appointments.
Yeah, discuss, yeah.
You know, I hate to say it, guys. It is 20 of 11. It's been a long meeting. I'd like to say we postpone that for our next meeting. I actually thought that's what we were going to be doing. I'm not prepared to discuss town council tonight.
We can summarize that we interviewed 6.
Yeah.
It said discuss, not vote. So
Okay.
I
No
had,
vote on it.
I had it planned for October 4th anyway, so, okay?
So we
I
met,
just wanted you to just,
They were all great.
Okay.
how do I say this? You're fine to do it the next meeting, because we were able to, after Thursday, excuse me, I have something in my eye, we were able to talk too, so.
so a quick summary, last week, Tuesday and Thursday, we interviewed 3 applicants for town council on each night, so 6 total.
Oh, very good.
All very good. They ranged in size. All of them had good municipal experience, and I'm interested to see where the discussions go about them.
I thought it was a good process.
Yeah.
Very good.
Excellent.
So Lorraine put that 10-4 to vote. I had inquiries from a couple of the firms, and I told them you would not be voting tonight anyway, so.
Right, yeah, we never
Why it was
planned on
just
voting.
discuss, yep.
All right, so
Yeah, we do have correspondence.
Correspondence. We have a nice note from Dale Balog to Lorraine. I'd like to read it because I think it is a nice note. Thank you so much for your great presentation on board protocols and procedures. I attended last evening on 9/14, and I learned that I was refreshed so much. Although I have been a longtime member of the Scituate Council of Aging Board, I realized how important this training was for myself and probably many. Your presentation was so organized, so clear and concise. I appreciate all the time and effort on your part and the town hall staff. The handbook guide will be so useful, really. Keep up the good work. Sincerely, Dale Blog. So, Lorraine, thank you. I think it's nice that you got that recognition, and hopefully all those that still need to go to your training will find that this advice and gratitude is helpful.
A lot of people tend to think that John is helping me put together a video for online training for our future appointments.
Oh, good. Thanks, John. Then we have our annual letter from the Cardinal's office inviting us to join a mass that'll take place on 11:30 a.m. on Sunday, October 9th at the Cathedral of the Holy Cross in Boston. This is to honor all those that have died in the line of duty and to honor their families. So we just need to RSVP to the Cardinal if we will be attending.
Marty, did you go to that last year?
for all public safety personnel
going
and
to.
families.
I thought you were, yeah.
So, it's very nice as well. And just, we did have a decision on the liquor violation down at Harborside Wine and Spirits, and the state agency advised us that they were, concluded that they issued them a warning.
So I got a question on that. From reading it, I thought they had a violation. Have we dealt with them before?
Yeah, this was March, there was one,
Did we have a hearing or no? Were they caught, they were dealt with before?
but it was ABCC again.
No, I thought we did a,
But they don't, you can't use one against the other. We asked.
that's my
them.
whole point. That's what I was
Yeah.
going to raise. So in
this
other
is
words,
We asked when we had the
ABCC's
last one.
difference.
You can't pyramid.
Yeah, not ours, yeah.
that's ridiculous. It really should be overlapping.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you can get, if you do it right, not that you're intending to, but if you fail on one with the ABCC,
It was a
10-year, they look
long
back
time
10
ago.
years.
I mean, it was since I was here. It was for
Yeah,
underage.
like 8 years ago or 7
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah, the last sentence was, as the licensee has been in business for more than 10 years and had no previous violation with the...
With them.
ABCC.
With the
With
ABCC.
Right.
yeah. The commission issued a warning.
So I guess can we bring them in here for?
No, that's why we know the answer to that, because after we had someone before, last time we had two, we wanted to know if we could bring them in but never the two shall meet. Remember, Lorraine,
Is that
you
something
called
we
on
can
that.
take into consideration, though, in the event that something were to happen?
That I don't know. That
I would think we should be able to.
Really?
Why not?
But
Something's
it
not
would,
adding up.
it would seem, since you're notified of it and the
Sting
disposition of
operation
it,
with two
that
hit
you
on one
could
night.
I know.
One was Front Street Gourmet,
But you
one was
couldn't
Harborside.
do your own.
Long, it was a year ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
No, because we didn't
And
conduct.
that's
Now,
the same person.
that is bizarre. Oh, well. Any event.
I guess their records aren't that good, but that's...
That's all the
probably good for them.
correspondence we have, Mr. Chair.
Awesome. Okay,
Other business?
approval of meeting minutes?
Yeah, how about, where is it?
Do we have any? do we
Move
have
the
any-
minutes
to-
of September
yeah.
6th.
Second.
Second by Ms.
Did you even get to say the date?
September 6th, 2016. No, that's fine. No, that's-
All those in favor?
I'll second that one, too.
Aye.
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 Good.
Sorry.
Stealing my thunder at the beginning of the movie, in the beginning of the
Anybody have anything?
meeting.
I just have one quick thing, a positive one, I'll just jump in quickly. Just want to say thank you to the Scituate Garden Club for inviting us to their 100th birthday. So 100 years of designing and growing beautiful flowers, and there's some really talented folks in this town, and it was a nice event, and I thank you for inviting us. And I think that's quite a feat to be together as an organization for 100 years.
That's great.
So happy birthday.
I want to go to the
I
next
didn't
one.
see the invite, but
I want to go, I think, I wasn't even
I
invited.
thought that was, I'm glad you went.
How'd you get the invite?
Came in my mail.
Maybe I missed it. I want to transition to a quick sports report, as we're playing fall sports right now. The high school is doing great on their boys soccer and girls soccer. And again, they have games at 4 o'clock out here in the afternoon, and the football team has started off 2-0. They beat Cardinal Spellman, and they beat Canton. And they play this Friday night against Pembroke at home, 7 o'clock. Go down and root them on. They're having a great year, and a lot of returning seniors. And we were there last Friday, no, 2 Fridays ago. It was a great crowd. Great crowd, and this is the perfect time of year to go watch football. So, head out there.
John, anything?
Not tonight, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Sean? No?
No, not tonight.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn and sign documents.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dennehy. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Good night, everybody.
Good night, folks.
Thank you.
Good night.